live? Real?
Hello. Real. Are we live?
We are. We are indeed, I think.
Ready to go. All right, I've been preparing for this all day. I've been very, very excited. Can't even begin to tell you.
Alright,
Been
yeah.
doing a lot of mental preparation, a lot of drinking preparation,
Yeah.
a
Enjoying
lot of
your.
a lot of movie analysis preparation too. It's
Of
because of course
course.
is needed for the
Yeah.
flooded cinema show.
Yes. So, welcome everyone. Episode 18 of Flooded Cinema. Getting up there. I'm getting, going pretty well. These last couple of months been good fun. And this month we've got a special that I'm beginning where we're doing vampire movies for the month of October, basically, is what's happening. So this is the first October special for the year, and I'm joined today by Cloutless. Say hello. You already said hello,
Hello.
but
Yeah. Maybe jumped the gun a
yeah,
little
you
bit with my
jumped the
hello.
gun. Wow, who's the host here?
Sorry, sorry.
And today we are discussing From Dusk Till Dawn and Twilight.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, this is a pretty good double feature, honestly. We'll start with From Dusk Till Dawn, but I just want to get what was your general impression of watching? Because you literally watched these back to back. Which one did you watch first?
So it's interesting because I was not expecting a double feature. I don't know what miscommunication we had there, but today, like at 1 p.m. my time, I found out I had to watch Dust Till Dawn, so I went in completely blind. You know, had no idea what it was about.
Oh, really?
I didn't know Quentin Tarantino was involved until I recognized his face show up as an actor.
Yeah.
So it was such a blind thing, and I think it's probably one of the best movies you could go into blind, actually. So I
Oh,
very
yeah.
much enjoyed the experience.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we'll preface this by saying if you haven't seen From Dusk Till Dawn, stop watching this now. Go watch the movie if you don't know anything
Yeah.
about it. Just because I almost feel bad discussing this movie, just because it if you go in blind, that experience is so amazing. Um, it's so fun. But
Yeah.
we'll get into it. But this is your warning, and I don't like to normally give spoiler warnings of things because that's kind of gay. But uh, for this movie, I do because that is the whole point of this movie. Kind of is what I would say to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at my notes. The first thing I wrote, which is by accident, actually, I said, "Well, the opening scene is not Dusk, possibly a subversive movie." So good foreshadowing.
My first note was Mongoloids,
Yeah. Oh,
which is you've got your great little like I don't know who wrote the script, but I'm assuming Tarantino must have really helped. Oh, yeah,
hmm.
no, the screenplay was Tarantino. Yeah, oh, okay. Yeah, from
Yeah.
Dusk Till Dawn, 1996. So basically, 1995, Tarantino makes Pulp Fiction. It is like the biggest movie ever, and then he's allowed to do whatever he wants. So he lets his friend. He convinces basically people to give Robert Rodriguez money, and then they make this movie. That's the biographical info for it, basically. But it's a really amazing movie. I think I can't remember when I first saw it, maybe high school or something. But it's such a fun, uh, yeah, movie. It's a lot better than like, yeah. This is probably Robert Rodriguez's best film, is what I'll also say.
Yeah. And I don't know much about Robert Rodriguez. I kind of like in my again. I have to preface this with I actually hate movies, so it's very interesting that I'm even on this show because I know you're a huge cinephile. But I did enjoy watching these movies, and I kind of when I looked at the Wikipedia after, I was like, oh, that's kind of a throwaway director in my mind. Um, but I like those Tarantino movies where he just does the writing. Like the one I
Mm.
liked was True Romance. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've seen that one.
yeah, that's a good one
Yeah,
too.
he's a good writer, and like that's the first note I realized. I was like, why is the writing so good? And I was like, oh, Tarantino's in this movie when his character shows up.
Yeah,
So and that's right under the same comment you had where I said, based retard mongoloid conversation. Is there a log? Is retard selling food? Who knows what goes on in the mind
yeah,
of a
yeah.
mongoloid? So great.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Um, yeah, so this movie, we basically, yeah, the opening is sort of, it's your classic. I would say like the beginning of the first. So this movie basically has two halves, um, and I would say the first half is kind of like, it's almost like a neo noir western type thing. Is like how it feels at times. Like
Mhm.
particularly the very first scene feels very western to me. Um, you've got this the dusty road. They come into like a store, and then they have this conversation. And then like Tarantino and George Clooney come out of the shadows, with the girls, those hostage girls and everything. Um, yeah, and there's a shootout basically. And I think what I really love in this movie is Tarantino is actually really good at acting when he's playing like a sick pervert.
Yeah. Actually, the only time I've ever like been like, oh, he's acting well, when he's just being himself with like the
Yeah,
the foot fetishry and all that.
yeah, it's bizarre. Um, he is, yeah, because I mean he's in a few of his own movies. He like has a cameo, so he has his notorious Pulp Fiction one, which is which I enjoy for a different reason.
Mhm.
Um, and then like he's in Death Proof. He's in what else? Django. He's in like a lot of his most of his movies. He'll have
Yeah,
like a little.
he really enjoys the self cameo. It's a little narcissistic, let's be honest here.
I mean,
He
yeah.
does it quite a bit.
Well, and it's mostly there as a joke, but
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
his acting is always horrible.
Yeah, it really is. Like because I watch most of the movies I watch because my dad loves movies, and he would always show me
uh,
Tarantino films. But he would be that guy to be like, yeah, but when he plays himself, it's so bad, So that's where I got that from.
I will say that I rewatched Django Unchained. I don't know, in the last 6 months or so, and I think when I first saw it, I was like, maybe I don't know if I was offended by his like Australian accent, but now going back to it, I just thought it was hilarious. I wish like I wish he had more scenes. Honestly, it was so funny. Um,
I was not aware Australians could get offended.
no, I mean I don't think I was offended. I think I just thought it was dumb whenever that movie came out. But yeah, I rewatched it. Holds up. Uh, yeah, and Clooney as well is very just standard Clooney, I guess.
Mhm.
It's like Clooney in a thriller type, you know. And I wouldn't say he was like it wasn't a bad performance or anything, but he was just sort of written as very standard, like paint by numbers type character. But
Right.
and he brings a certain charm and charisma because he is George Clooney. But yeah, I
I mean,
think
straight up,
he just gets outshined by like a lot of the other characters, pretty much.
I would agree with that. I would say what he brings to it, like that charm you spoke of, is he's just a good-looking guy. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Like he's a handsome fella. So like he's playing the scumbag, but he's really handsome, and like so he has that Clooney aspect to it. So it's like there's almost no reason to like morally sympathize with him ever, but because he's a
Mm,
handsome guy and he's like not as horrible as his brother, you're kind of like, all right,
yes.
and that's basically his character.
Mm. Um, I like their relationship as well, and I really like how, um, so pretty much Tarantino's character, which is, what's his name? Is he Seth or is he Richie? No,
He's Richie.
yeah, he's Richie. He's Richie. So anyway, yeah, Richie Gecko is insane basically, and like he has paranoid schizophrenia. And like I love how there's the subtle bit in the opening scene, like the cashier he was signaling to the cop, sort of thing, and then but it's like it's unclear whether or not he actually was or not, and then later on you sort of see he hallucinates people saying things to him and like
Mm-hmm.
is just like
and
literally
and I
schizophrenic.
rewinded. I rewinded to make sure that I didn't miss the guy whispering, "Help me," as he accused him, the cashier.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's totally ambiguous. And then he does have that obvious delusion, but I don't know if he is schizophrenic or just straight up demon possessed because what he's into specifically is you know the things he's into, which are
Mm.
pretty particularly um, outside the realm of paranoid schizophrenia, more in the realm of like psychopathy and just total disregard for human life and reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I suppose that's a more accurate way to characterize it. Yeah, but yeah, he's just so well written. I don't know. I guess this was just Tarantino just letting his id be like fully come out as a character, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's interesting that this is like a 1996 film where Tarantino's not like that much of a mega celebrity yet, and then knowing all we know about Tarantino now, it's kind of like, huh,
Yeah,
that was the role you were best at playing at, dude.
yeah. Well, it's like
you know?
in the '90s, you had to be in the know to notice like foot stuff because like no one would really.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing, and now like it's whatever. But it is interesting
Yeah.
looking back.
I mean, well, like if we let's talk about the foot stuff if it's okay. Like, there's two scenes, right? There's
Yeah, yeah,
there's the one where he
yes,
rapes and kills a girl,
yeah,
and right before he does that, he asks her to take off her shoes, and then he's
yes,
just glaring at them, right?
yes,
And then the second scene is he's got a wet, like for it doesn't even make sense why it's soaking wet, dripping fluids into his mouth, but it's a wet foot dripping fluids into his mouth.
yes.
And you know, if you watch this without knowing Tarantino, you would just be like, "Oh, he wrote a good character." No, this is actually like what he's into. You know?
Well, we won't say he kills people. He rapes and kills people.
Oh yeah. Well, we can't say that. We can't say that. It's YouTube.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure he basically constructed a movie so that Selma Hayek he could lick Selma Hayek's foot. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
It was a $18 million or $19 million project to. Yeah,
That's actually one of my notes. Is like the maid from 30 Rock is the stripper. I don't know if you ever saw 30 Rock,
the maid from
the
no.
NBC show. She's the maid in that show.
Uh,
Like when she's like 10 years older too. So it's just like
yeah, this is one of her
I just thought it was
earlier
funny.
roles as well, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, I would assume so. Like you, you wouldn't go from I don't know. When did she do? Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. We don't have to get into Selma Hayek's career. Um. Now, yeah, we have the opening. We've met the brothers. We've discussed the brothers. And then the other characters that we'll talk about, I guess, are the family. Um, so there's Harvey Keitel is a preacher or a pastor or whatever that has lost his faith, basically.
Hmm.
Um, then he has two kids, and the kids are fine. They don't have anything really going on with them. It is kind of funny that the son is like Chinese. Like, was he adopted? It's like never really made clear like what's happening there.
Never explained. Yeah.
And there's that hilarious scene where they like call him like a nip or something, and he's like
Yeah.
he's
They call him a jab. And then
yeah,
my
yeah.
note for that, because I just wrote notes as the movie was playing. I said, a Mysterian Asian child has appeared, and he calls a white man his father.
Mm,
Because that was just me trying to understand what was happening around me.
yeah.
Followed by cringe pastor, bro.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, whatever. That's. I mean, it sort of ties. I don't know if it ties into the second half. It sort of does, but like basically, I guess. I guess the nice thing about whenever you have your, pastor that lost his faith character in a movie, by the end of the movie he gets it back, so that's always kind of nice.
Yeah.
Uh, what else have I got written down here? Oh yeah, and I guess the daughter, she's fine. She's like,
She's cute. I mean, I've seen her in other movies, and she always
yeah,
plays that cute Southern gal with the big blue eyes. You know.
yeah, she's in so many things in the '90s, playing that exact character. It is.
Yeah, yeah.
She's in that one with Brad Pitt, I think. Anyway, what else have we got written down here?
It's funny though when Quentin Tarantino's character like first locks eyes with her in the bikini and
Oh yes,
has that delusion, right? You could see like on George Clooney's character's face, that he's just like, oh, this rape thing's gonna be a problem. He's like, hey, why don't you go to the bathroom and like change clothes while my
Yeah, yeah,
brother's
yeah.
over there.
Well, yeah, that's what George Clooney says. Like he's a thief, and it's just like his brother is the psycho one. So it's
Hmm.
I always love movies where there's the it happen. I guess it's like your classic sort of mice and men sort of setup where you've got the two brothers and one of them's just like he can't function in society basically.
Yeah,
Similar sort of
and
setup. Hello.
I do like going back to the first scene though, that they have the classic, and this is kind of got this vibe that it was going to be this kind of Pulp Fiction-esque thing because
Mm.
it was kind of like corny with the whole I'm going to shoot the bottles in the back of your liquor store, throw a fire toilet paper and it's going to explode because of course whiskey explodes if you light a fire on it, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever. And then they walk away like that meme kind of walk away from an explosion thing. I was
Yeah.
like, all right, so it's that kind of movie. But still, I was wrong because this movie will continuously subvert your expectations the more and more you watch it.
Yeah.
It's actually was like an unbelievable experience to be honest, going in blind at least.
Yeah. The opening is great. I do love the liquor bottles exploding, managing to like destroy an entire building. Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like it makes no sense, but actually wrote down like first scene, idle chatter is 10 out of 10, right?
yeah.
Because they red pill you on how microwaving food is bad for you.
True.
The cop is talking about he's about to get tanked, and that's literally why I poured a bottle because I was like, all right, I'm getting into this. They talk about the retards, right? And then Quentin Tarantino and George Clooney show up as a guy going in blind. You're like, okay, is this going to be like a sick movie? There was no way in chance that this will degenerate into a snakes on a plane tier movie. No way. But
Well, I mean, it's better than snakes on a plane, but I see what you mean.
I'm just saying, like, I feel like there's two movies in one here.
There's at least two. There's at least two.
Yeah, that's at least two, 100%.
Um, yeah, so pretty much at this point, since Quentin Tarantino has uh, killed their hostage, they have to get new hostages. So they kidnap the family, they take their RV, and then they use them for the border crossing. And I love the border crossing, like them driving down, the uh, the chit chat between everyone, and because it's sort of like it's peak Tarantino, 90s Tarantino, sort of, writing all his stuff. So it's really good. And the border crossing itself, I really like. The cop coming on board, and like George Clooney and Tarantino hiding in the bathroom with the girl, and Tarantino like what does George Clooney say? It's like if we're not nuts, if we're not fucking nuts for like 2 seconds, and then
Yeah.
Tarantino is like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? It's like you're
He's like,
implying that, yeah,
I haven't been acting him nuts. He starts freaking out. And then
yeah,
there's that cathartic moment where he just kind of backhands him and
yeah,
knocks him out.
yeah,
And it's like it's this weird thing where it's like very cathartic because you already hate this guy. He's a character written for you to hate,
yeah, yeah,
because he's raped and killed an old lady, and you had this weird that scene of the subliminal thing, and his brother's like, "Yo, I'm not this fucked up. Like I'm a professional thief. You're fucking up my shit. Like what
mm,
is wrong with you? But you're my brother," which is anyone who has a brother can understand.
yeah,
Well, maybe some really judgmental people would betray their brother, but I wouldn't. If my brother was a rapist, I would defend him. I'm not gonna lie. And you kind of get that brotherly impetus of like, dude, you're
yeah,
so fucked, and I hate you, but like you're my brother. I'm gonna protect you. But
yeah,
then when he knocks him out, it's kind of like, all right, shut the fuck up, retard. Like we're trying to
yeah,
cross the
yeah,
border.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like that scene. And then the Mexican guy is like creepy and like looking at the girl sitting on the toilet.
Yeah. And
Um,
I actually commented that like, well, because I still didn't know what kind of movie this was, so I was
okay.
like, I feel like they could have made that scene a little bit more subtle, is what I wrote, and then they kind of like made it a little more obvious for no reason.
Yeah.
And I still didn't realize like where this movie was going, and then it makes sense, in retrospect, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it was like comedically like how obvious is it that the border patrol guy is looking at her panties, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Um, but I definitely, even if the movie had continued on the same trajectory, I think I liked the tone it had because I don't know, if sometimes it's just boring when movies sort of try and do that middle ground type thing between like over the top and subtle or whatever, and they just sort of it's just sort
yeah.
of bland. Whereas none of this you could never call this bland.
Well, I mean, that's what I really liked about the movie is how gradually it transitioned to this kind of silly. I said snakes on a plane tier, but like that's the only reference I have of just being like really kind of ridiculous, kind of
Yes,
not taking
yes,
yourself seriously at all, right? Where it's like even
yeah,
CGI, you can tell like nobody's giving a shit, right? Like at a certain
yeah,
point. But it started off as like a Tarantino tier film, but
yeah,
it slowly like almost degrades into this other kind of movie, which is cool because of how slow it
yes,
is actually.
yes,
Because like that scene where the border guard is looking at her panties, and it's like, all right, bro, I can already tell he's like looking at her panties, and then he does it again, and then he closes the blinds, or slowly like
yeah,
making sure the audience realizes that he's looking at her panties. Like I get it. That was part of the gradual like
yes, yeah,
disintegration
yeah,
into
yeah,
what the movie becomes, and I thought that was cool actually in hindsight.
yeah. And then pretty much they make it through the border, and then they go to he's this sort of crazy Mexican bar slash like strip club, I suppose, called the Titty Twister. Um, and this is again like you're like, huh, this is kind of a weird tonal shift to be like going to this kind of a bar in the middle of my like crime thriller.
Right. And then, of course, and even on top of that, the Titty Twister Bar has on it From Dusk Till Dawn, which is the name of the movie. So you're already like,
Yes. Yeah, what's
is
going
that
on
it?
here?
This is starting to be intentionally cheesy a little bit at this point. That's where you
Yeah.
start to get the hint. Yeah.
Um, and then they're in the bar, they're drinking, and then I guess Salma Hayek does like this very elaborate striptease.
hmm
Um,
So that, from what I remember, and the movie's fresh in my mind, they punch the bouncer at the bar, and
yes.
then Tarantino's buddy like kicks him on the floor, and that's when they get into the bar all hard ass. On the way to the bar, there's been tension between the pastor, fringe Protestant pastor who doesn't believe in God, but he kind of does because his wife died, by the way. There's tension between him and Clooney's character of like, all right, well, like you don't fuck with me, I don't fuck with you, so we're cool.
Yeah,
So they
yeah,
punch the guy in, they get in there, and then they almost get another fight, and the pastor like tries to break it up and be like, hey man, like haven't you realized that you won already? You stole all this money from a bank. You took me here, like you're fucking all these people up. Like, why are you being so aggressive? Like, you won. Just relax and
yeah,
enjoy
yeah,
it.
yeah. And I think that's where we see like we see more of like, yeah, Clooney is actually just this aggressive thug as well, but it's just by
Mm-hmm.
comparison to his brother,
Yeah,
he's
like,
you know tame, I
it's
suppose.
it's like the degrees of the criminal mind. You have
Yeah,
Clooney, who is an aggressive thug. He'll kill you, but it's more of a narcissistic kind of ego thing.
yeah,
He's not actually like a sicko, right? Like
yeah,
he's not. He wants to. He doesn't want to kill you for no reason. He wants to like win, right? As opposed to
yeah,
the other guy who has like a fetishistic kind of mentality around it.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I'm just trying to think. I really like that bit where Harvey Keitel is like starting to stand up to them a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. Harvey Keitel was really good in this, I thought.
Yeah, I think
His
so.
the character itself is kind of maybe we have our own views about that trope because of we're Christian or whatever, but
Yeah.
um
No, I have a million literal green text in my notes of like Protestant holy water, Protestant holy water. Like,
yeah, but
so
I
it's a
think
little memey.
but beyond that, like he it's at the very least it's a well acted character, whatever we think of the writing of the character. I thought he was
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
I would agree with that, and I like that he stands up to him, and the way that he does is kind of this.
Yeah.
It's very kind of a particular part of America way of doing it,
Yeah.
where I'm not actually a pussy dude. You know what I mean? I'm not actually like this weak person that you might perceive me to be. I'm just a nice guy. But I grew up where I grew up, and like this, I'm not gonna take your shit. Just I'm
Yeah.
not scared. There's kind of this bravery there that
Yeah.
is well written.
Yeah.
It's not like this unbelievable thing. It's very
Yeah,
well written.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And it's like they've because he is genuinely frustrated. It's like, why are you causing all these problems? Like, we made it through the
Mm-hmm.
border. We're here, etc., etc. So,
Yeah, and I've met people in America like that. They don't seem very aggressive, but they have this kind of way of standing up to people.
yeah. Um, I'm just trying to think what else is there to say before we transition into the second half of the film. I guess there's sort of like some strange things that happen as well in the
I
bar.
think,
Like, for instance,
yeah, the foreshadowing, the
yeah,
foreshadowing.
we're introduced to I believe it's Tom Savini, right? Yeah, Tom Savini, um, who he's a famous like special effects guy. So he's playing Sex Machine.
Yeah,
We see him at the bar. It's like, huh, this is weird to have a guy that has a whip and like a gun cod piece. This is a weird like thing to have in this movie. And then
yeah. No, I mean that was one of the points of the film where I was like, "What am I watching?" Is when the dick gun comes out. Um,
yeah, it's not a literal
it's
dick
like,
gun. It's just a gun. It's a surprise hidden gun in his pants, basically.
but I don't know how he fires it.
Yeah, well,
I
that's
don't
true.
think
Maybe it is then. I
I
guess
don't
it
think
is.
the logistics are clear on that.
um. So yeah, we
Yeah.
have him. We have
I have to say one thing, like I have other comments before the next scene, before the next chapter, I guess, is that one of the things that bothered me is that they show up at this bar, the Twitty Twister, right? They beat up the guy, they get in this argue with the bartender and whatever, and then the pastor pulls this baller move of like, because the bartender's like, I only serve truck drivers and bikers.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know you, right? And then the pastor pulls out, well, I'm certified to drive this family vehicle over here. You need
Yeah.
a class 2 license. So technically I'm a truck driver. He's like, all right, I say you can drink here, man. Like, don't worry. Like, right?
Yeah.
And then what do they do? What does George Clooney do? Day one in Mexico, he orders whiskey. Who the hell, day one crossing Mexican border, orders whiskey? Like, bro. And they're
Yeah.
taking shots of whiskey, and the whole time I'm like, why isn't this tequila?
Yeah.
Is this another subversive feature of this film that they're not taking shots of tequila? Like 50 miles from the border of Mexico. Like, you have to imagine like someone from the States crossing the border of Mexico, reaching a bar and being like, oh, I'm gonna have whiskey. Like, what?
Yeah. I don't. I was like, huh, that's kind of weird as well. I noticed that.
Yeah, and they're taking shots of it like if it was tequila, but they ordered whiskey. It was just very strange.
Yeah, I don't know who shots whiskey like that. That was really bizarre.
Exactly, yeah. Like they were taking shots of whiskey as if it were tequila. I think it was a subversive element, and it had to be, because nobody drinks whiskey like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough about Mexico. Like, is like whiskey popular there? Like
No,
generally?
it's
No.
tequila. So tequila is like, so as an American, from an American mindset, and even a Mexican mindset, anyone who like knows anything about Mexico, like you go to Mexico, the first thing you want to order is tequila, right? Because you're in
Yeah,
Mexico.
that's what I assumed. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is weird. I don't know. I have not
No,
analyzed.
Mexicans aren't like known for their whiskey. That's like Americans are known for their whiskey 100%. Like if a Mexican went to America,
Yeah,
North America, they would order whiskey, or if Japan has good whiskey, but not
yeah,
Mexico.
yeah. I don't know. There must be some. There's got to be something to it as to why they did that. I don't know.
The other comment I have before the next scene is that the bouncer, when they're first arriving,
Oh
is talking
yeah.
about all the different types of pussy, right?
Oh
He's like,
yeah.
we got Latino pussy, we got this pussy, whatever. He's going off about pussy, and then the Kate, walks in with the crew, and they go up before they punch him, and he's like, oh, I've never seen an American Pie pussy.
Uh,
And I just thought, Okay, I don't think a Mexican would ever actually say that. So I actually wrote like sarcastically like
It's true.
American pie pussy is a very common slur for American women in Mexico.
It also makes less sense when you find out like about what his deal is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, all right. So I suppose we can't bury the lead for too much longer. Uh, at this point, so we've discussed the bar in general, and then we have basically they get into another fight. The bouncer comes in. You know, all the people they've annoyed in the bar so far sort of get involved in a scuffle, and then George Clooney and Tarantino start just shooting people, basically.
Yeah.
But then they
And this
don't.
is after. Well, let's talk about the Satania whatever 30 Rock made first, right? Like she comes in with the snake. Very.
Yes.
There's a lot of satanic imagery in the bar, and she comes in as like a Lilith kind of demon with
Yeah.
like very sexual innuendo with the snake rolling around her crotch, and then she comes up and they call her the most evil woman. You need to bow down
Mm,
before her. This is my Jay Dyer analysis here, right? You need to worship her. Right? So it's all this very satanic kind of symbolism of like this kind of. So you're obviously in a very occultic place, and I've
yeah.
been to bars like that. I'm not gonna lie. I went to a bar here in where I live called Los Santos, and it was not about saints. And so I kind of was familiar with the vibe. I was like, wow, how was I so blind to that?
Yeah.
So people are blind to this kind
There's
of stuff.
one here called Naked for Satan, and I was like, oh, I'm not going in there.
Yeah. So you'll find a lot of these kind of bars, like this is a realistic aspect of the film, are explicitly satanic when you go to them. And
Mm,
so this is it, well, but what that means is that there's really no reason for these guys to be suspicious of anything. They're just like, I'm in a weird fucking Mexico bar, right? And there's this
yeah.
satanic girl with a whatever, and then she comes up and like drips her for whatever reason out of nowhere, soaking wet foot into Quentin Tarantino's mouth.
No, she pours the whiskey on her leg.
Oh, is that what she does? I
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
was like, why is this dripping? Makes so much more sense.
yeah.
Yeah, and she's like very sexy. This maid from 30 Rock, and then
I love that's where you know her from.
yeah, that's all I know. And then that's where we really transition to the next film, was where you're getting at, right? With the other people,
Yes, yes.
the
So pretty,
bouncer who they knocked out comes back in.
yes. And so they shoot people, but then these people do not die. And so, um, we have this basically, and then Selma Hayek, her head transforms into like this lizard thing, and then pretty much all of the women and all of the bar staff transform into these sort of creatures, and then we basically begin the second half of this movie. Uh, and I really love this second half of the movie. It's pretty much what I like about it is so this movie's like only hour and 40 minutes or something, but
Mm-hmm.
and it's pretty much right in the middle that we split to this whole vampire thing. Um, and what I like about the second half is you pretty much get a full 90-minute like 80s B movie horror film, but compressed down to
Yeah,
like 45 minutes, so there's like none of the fat at all. Um,
you're right.
which is good, because we've already introduced the characters of Sex Machine and the black guy and everything, and so it's really good. Um,
And they were subtly introduced, and like they kind of in a 1980s fashion became these kind of important side characters quickly, for that moment.
yeah,
Where all of a sudden it's like I'm paying attention to these people who may have been who I would have probably thought were vampires, but apparently not. I thought it was kind of cool that not everyone in there was vampires, but the main
yeah,
characters.
yeah. Um,
And let's talk about the style of the vampires, because these are not sexy Edward Cullen vampires,
no,
right?
no,
They're
no.
Skyrim. They're like those weird Skyrim vampires when you
Yeah,
turn into vampire mode in Skyrim.
they're more like reptilian than like I don't know. They're very like I guess it's more bat-like. It's more traditional sort of kind of. I wouldn't say Nosferatu look, but it's like a more. I can't think of even like another piece of media that does this because most
I
vampire
think
stuff.
I would say like when you turn into a vampire in Skyrim is what the majority of them look like very bat vampire bat like Brazilian bat like the really ugly bats,
Yeah,
kind of looking. But what was interesting is that this Lilith kind of satanic, the most evil demon character that you need to bow down and worship to, the stripper, the
yeah,
maid from 30 Rock, she was the only one that was very reptilian, right? Like
yes,
she had this satanic form that was different than any other form in the movie. Everyone else had these like gross bat, like they were gross looking. Like the black guy turning bat was hilarious, but like, and then like with a big pig nose kind of bat shit. But she was very reptilian, satanic kind of looking, which I thought was interesting.
yeah. It seems like she was a different sort of creature, or like a
Yeah,
like was clearly like a higher sort of creature.
demonic. And I mean, and what I like about this movie, like the one thing is that they eventually allude to it all being demons, right?
Yeah,
Even the sociopathic George Clooney character eventually says that.
yeah. Um, so pretty much, yeah. A lot of people start turning into vampires, and then we get like the first initial action scene, which is great. I really this is yeah, just really good action, very very good action, like good cool bits of fighting and everything, and like Sex Machine uses his whip, and
That's the one
they
way to call it.
yeah, and they manage to uh, they like stake them all through the heart and everything. They melt,
Yeah, yeah.
and I guess we can I just want to talk about the effects are great. Like the makeup is so good. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and the bar looks amazing as well in general. Like it's just really good production. I have to say.
It's a cool bar, and it's cool how everyone turns into fire. And I would say it is cool, like seeing Sex Machine and this black guy. Who do we really get his name? I don't remember it.
I don't
The
remember his
Vietnam
name.
vet.
I don't
Yeah, the
remember it.
black guy. I think he's literally just the black guy, canonically in the film.
Uh,
And they are like the kings of killing these things, right? These vampires. And then
yes.
all of a sudden we find out that the Quentin Tarantino character, as he was being seduced by this reptilian wench,
Yeah.
got bit, right? He becomes a vampire.
Yeah.
And then you get this emotional moment between George Clooney and his brother. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't really remember the names, the geckos, right? and
Yeah.
and he's like, don't fucking kill my brother, are you kidding me, like just because he's a vampire. And then he looks at him in the eyes and he sees his facial expressions, and then he kills him himself, right?
Yeah.
And that's when you realize, okay, it's on. Like now we're just fighting vampires in
Yeah.
this bar, right? Like
So what was your reaction when like this happened? The transition. Were you
I
like
was I was shocked, and I was just like, all right. I was kind of like, let it roll. You know what I mean? Like let the movie do its thing, because I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. I already thought like everything I thought this movie was gonna. I thought it because I read the title From Dusk Till Dawn, and I was like, I hope this is not a cowboy movie, man, because I don't really like those that much. But I was like, some of those are okay, so I watched them, and like, no, it's not a cowboy movie at all. It just sounds like it could be.
Yeah, I would say From Dusk Till Dawn has got to be one of the best like impulsive watches. I don't know because
I think everyone should see it. It's a really good movie.
yeah,
I like that it has this. It has these two different parts to it. It
yeah,
does this thing where it could have been this more pretentious movie, and then it just threw it all away to be like this '80s horror movie, and it's super cool.
yeah,
And it's cool that Tarantino himself wrote the whole thing. Or I mean, I don't know if he wrote the whole thing, but I'm pretty sure he wrote the majority of it.
yeah,
Um, so let's see what I got here. Yeah, I have a lot of "Le Dick Gun is hilarious," which is true. And we talked about the Satanism and the fucking foot fetish and whatever.
yeah.
And then so like Mexican vampires. So I said like it's all coming together now as a ridiculous movie with dick guns and vampires, and I feel like it's snakes on a plane, which is like how I got that. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
I said subtlety has just gone out the window at this point.
yeah.
So we
But
could talk about like when they're first initially fighting the vampires.
yeah,
The girl Kate, with one of the first kills, I think, is she puts the crucifix around her neck in the vampire's mouth.
yes, yes. So yeah, Christianity is canonical in this world.
Mm-hmm. and apparently it's not very strict.
No, no.
But I feel like that would maybe make sense in a vampire situation. I don't know.
Yeah,
And then
I haven't dealt with vampires, so I couldn't say.
after Tarantino character dies, the lizard lady, the 30 Rock maid, she's stepping on him and she's saying like, "You, I will not even keep you alive. You will be my
Yeah,
pet. And I will slowly drink your blood from time to time." And she looks hot, and then all of a sudden they flash. It's the only part that maybe jump scared me a little bit, where they flash and she's in her demon lizard form all of a sudden, and all she
yeah,
says is "Welcome to slavery," right? And
yeah,
I felt like that was like the most demonic thing. Like that is what demons are all about, right? It's welcome to slavery.
yeah,
And luckily, like George Clooney pulls the whole action movie. Ah, not in this town, whatever. And shoots her in the face, right?
yeah,
But that to me was like a jump scare. Like that's real, right? Like
yeah,
these, as cheesy as this movie is, like these writers be doing, they're talking about stuff they know.
yeah. Well, it's just very true. I guess that's what lust and sin does to you. Well, that's what it does do to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's interesting having it personified in this way. Um, and then so we pretty much Tarantino turns, he gets killed, and then we have um, I really like the bit where they're all saying like George Clooney's like, look, I don't believe in vampires, but can we all agree this is vampires sort of thing? And it's like because it's one thing that's kind of always uh, in a lot of horror movies they have to go out of their way to have the characters like not know about like horror things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's just refreshing when characters immediately all get on board with like what's going on.
Right.
So I quite liked that bit where they're all talking about like what's going on, and George Clooney is like immediately like to the past. It's like you better get your faith back because that's what's gonna save us.
100%. It's so funny. It's like, um, because George Clooney, when they kind of like settle down and they're like, "What's going on?" He says, "Well, apparently we're dealing with vampires," and he's like, "And I don't even believe in vampires," which I thought was a kind of interesting comment, right?
Yeah,
It's like that's kind of how I see how most people view the world, where it's like there can be this so much obvious demonic, satanic shit in front of your face, and people are like, "Well, I don't believe in it," even though it's in your face, right?
mm,
So even though he's been killing vampires, he's killed his own brother at this point. He says, "Well, apparently we've been attacked by vampires, and I don't even believe in vampires."
yeah,
But then eventually, Clooney, out of everyone, not the pastor, not the religious daughter, not the little Japanese son who we haven't mentioned in a while,
yeah,
he's the one that the sociopath, the pure sociopath criminal says this is satanic, and then he does out of sociopathy, like for his own benefit, does apologetics to the preacher who's lost his faith.
yeah,
Right? Like it's not because he's like all of a sudden found God. He's just like the facts are these are from hell, and you're a preacher, right?
yeah,
It's, so you need to start believing in God, and I'm going to convince you that God is real. It
yeah,
is just so great.
yeah. I really like that scene where they're all talking, and I love then like that sort of settles down, and then it's revealed that Sex Machine got bit in like the scuffle earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like starting to turn. Like you can. What's funny as well is during the fight he's wearing like a tank top, and then immediately afterwards, after he got bit, he put on the jacket because he wanted to hide the fact that he got bit.
Yeah.
And but I love how like the black guy is like giving a speech, this sort of he's telling a story about when he was in like I don't know Vietnam or Korea or something, whatever it was. Um,
Yeah.
and but the cat like we're not even focusing on the story. We're just like watching Tom Savini like be like really shifty, and like he's beginning to turn. And I really thought that was a cool thing. And then yeah, pretty
It was.
much
And like eventually they just stopped like even showing the dialogue of the black guy telling his like really long story about
yeah,
killing killing Viet Cong, and then he at one point he says, "I had so much yellow flesh on my bayonet
yeah.
that I didn't realize how many people I killed." It was so good.
um, yeah, and then yeah, he turns, and he pretty much bites everyone except for George Clooney and the kids. There's another sort of
Well,
action scene.
he bites the black guy pretty hard on the neck. And then I'll have to say the black guy's vampire form is one of the most hilarious vampire forms. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but he just looked ridiculous.
I think it's just because he had his like skull shape. He has a very tall skull.
Yeah.
So it just looked like the makeup looked unusual on him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should say this is Fred Williamson is the black guy. He's sort of a famous 70s like blaxploitation type guy, which is why he's here pretty much,
He looks blaxploitation. Like he just looks like that kind of
classic
the black guy that the guy they wanted you to think what black people were like in the 90s is exactly
right. Yeah, and because anyway, being optical about racial politics here, please. I love old peoples.
My apologies.
I love old peoples here. I do not.
Well, I'm just saying, like those racists.
Yeah,
That's what they were doing with them.
But it's just these sort of it's like in Jackie Brown as well. You have he loves to get these old 70s blaxploitation people to come into his movies and that Tarantino. So
yeah, kind of like I mean I've seen a lot of those old. I prefer old movies actually, and even like. There's blaxploitation even in the Bruce Lee films, right? Like the Enter the Dragon, right? Like the black kung fu fighter. He's a really cool character. You love to root for him, but he's very blaxploitation, right?
Yeah.
He's this idealized version of a black person in that era.
Yeah.
Which I think is the definition, right?
It's like this stereotype. Yeah. And pretty much at this point, the door of the bar gets busted open and all the bats come in.
Yeah.
The bats looked really cool. So I think it's interesting. So clearly the people that actually worked in the bar were sort of like higher tier vampires, and then all these bats are like the little underlings, is what it seemed like. Because, the bats... their transformed form was much more almost like zombies.
Mm-hmm.
And so at this point, Harvey Keitel gets bit pretty much, and then they all go and hide in the storeroom, and they find there's the classic like lock and load, like they find a bunch of guns. And I love Harvey Keitel has the baseball bat and the shotgun. And he makes a cross with it. Yeah,
very cool. And he can ward off the vampires as he runs to the hideout. And he's already bit at this point too. So he got bit, and then he everyone else hid in this kind of like whatever cabinet or closet area, storage area, and he's still back there, and he's already bit, and he's kind of wrapping his wounds, and then he creates this shotgun cross thing, wards off all the vampires, and runs with them. And then that's kind of like where he says, all right, I've been bit. I have about an hour before I turn. We got two options. We can either stay in this room and I'll turn, or we could just all kill these vampires.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's where they go into that montage scene of finding all these items. They're carving crosses into the bullets. They're, the Protestant preacher who is apparently undead can somehow still bless holy water.
Well, okay. I will say to the point there, I think God would give you some oikonomia in that situation.
I think so. Yes.
To be fair.
I agree with that. I would agree. As much as I make fun of the Protestant holy water and a squirt gun, because I thought it was just a funny phrase of words.
Yeah.
It is true. I think in that moment, of course, God would protect you.
Yeah.
But it is funny.
It is.
As an Orthodox Christian, it's funny to me.
Yeah.
The whole, Protestant holy water and a squirt gun to kill vampires. I think it literally.
True. Yeah. I feel like surely they should have just drank the holy water. See, this is the Orthodox difference. We would drink. We would drink it, and then they couldn't drink our blood because it would kill them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
See, this is Orthodox mindset. This is the phronema.
This is the phronema
Yeah.
of anti-vampires.
Yeah.
Side note, speaking of orthodoxy and vampires, did you know that the word vampire is Serbian?
I did not know it was Serbian. I know that Count Dracula comes from the Romanian guy.
And so the apparently the first one of the first vampires ever to be like described in Eastern Europe, and it was picked up by like the Austrians and the Western Europeans once they took over Serbia, right? Like the
Yeah, yeah.
Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Was Sava Savanovic. So like Saint Sava was the like primordial Orthodox saint of Serbia, right? He's the first patriarch. He's everything, right, to Serbs.
Yeah.
And then apparently there was this vampire who's Sava Savanovic, which is like Sava, son of Sava,
Yeah.
and he was the first vampire in like the 14th or the 15th century, right? And like that's how like
Yeah.
that kind of vampiric myth spread. And I was reading about the history of vampires before the show, and I really do believe that in Eastern Europe they were dealing with vampires. Call me crazy, but I just believe them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why would they lie? Why would they lie? Let's be honest here. So, I would have to say orthodoxy has a lot to do with warding off vampires.
Yes.
Even Richter from Super Smash from Castlevania, he does the three finger salute. I posted it on my Twitter earlier because he's a Serb. That's why he kills vampires to Serbian blood. Anyways, back on topic.
Yeah. What did we get up to? Protestant holy water.
Protestant holy
Phronema.
water. Yeah.
Oh, we said, yeah, we
Phronema.
would drink the holy water. I think, in general, that's good advice if you're dealing with a vampire. Do drink some of the holy water. I will say that.
Yeah, yeah.
This is,
100%.
yeah, legit advice. This is financial advice.
Yeah, yeah. If you're dealing with vampires, just drink it.
Yeah. And then you could also just spit on them. Anyways, we're not getting into like.
So eventually they burst down the door and they let all the bats that are no longer bats, they transformed into these Skyrim type vampires.
Yeah.
And they start warding them off with the shotgun cross, and then they start wreaking havoc on all these people.
Yeah.
These vampires.
Yeah. And then we have the gun. Yeah, and then they start killing all the vampires, and that's really another cool action scene.
Yeah.
I really like that scene.
And even the squirt gun holy water thing is pretty cool, right? It just fries them.
Yeah, I love. It's the Chinese guy that gets that, and he's got and they use they use prophylactics and fill them up with the holy water as well.
And I think George Clooney puts like a wooden stake in like some kind of nail gun.
Oh
where he can just like rip it into people's hearts.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That was a very like Evil Dead moment. I thought I loved
Yeah.
that.
Very video gamey almost.
Yeah, and that ending action sequence is great. And then Harvey Keitel turns, and then
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
yeah, they kill him, and then the Chinese guy.
I repeat, the JAP gets bit. I repeat, the JAP gets bit by the white dad. That was my notes.
Yeah.
Anime boy gets wrecked.
Yeah.
So that's very sad. But he also before that, the preacher looked at his two kids, the Chinese one and then Kate, and he like did this whole thing where I'm gonna shoot myself if you guys refuse to promise not to kill me, I'm gonna shoot myself, right? So he put them under this like high pressure of like, I'm going to turn and you have to kill me when I turn.
Yeah.
Promise me or I'll kill myself right now, and then they promised.
Yeah. And then they kill him when he does turn, and then the Chinese guy is like, I don't want to become a vampire, so the girl kills him basically. Now, yeah, I guess in that situation, I guess that's probably what I would do as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, what are you gonna do? It's your father. It's very difficult. But if it's you've already seen enough vampire logic where you have to agree with what he's saying, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if we can get into the anthropology of it, but clearly killing a vampire wouldn't count as, like, are they a person at that point? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he even said once he got bit, he just straight up said, the pastor, "I'm dead," right?
Yeah,
So just
that's
act
true.
like I've already died,
Yeah,
which I think is fair with these kind of vampire logistics.
yeah,
But anyways, he turns and then he immediately bites the Asian kid,
yeah.
right? And then the Asian kid is just getting mauled, absolutely mauled by 10 different of these bat demons, just wrecked. And he's begging his sister, Kate. He's like, kill me, just please kill me. And she's like, I can't. And at this point, it's like very frustrating. You're like, just kill him. Like,
Yeah,
like a man would have killed them out of mercy. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But like, of course, she hesitated out of her twisted version of mercy. But eventually she does it, right? She
yeah,
kills him. And now it's just like, what the hell? It's a sociopathic criminal and this distraught daughter of a pastor who was only the real one that had faith,
yeah,
right? And George Clooney, and that's who's left. And it's just like, what?
yeah. And then then what happens? They're like getting into a desperate situation. They're running out of bullets, running out of everything, and but then light starts to come through the holes in the wall, and they realize, oh, it's like daylight outside now, or it's dawn outside now. So they shoot more holes in the wall, and then the vampires start to blow up and everything. Um, and that's a like another cool that's a cool like way to end the whole thing. That it is daylight, and then they have managed to survive, and yeah, I like that. And then it's just like the tone sort of switches back again a little bit. Like you have this Mexican guy like out the and he's like negotiating with this Mexican crime guy that they were there to meet in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was just the most ridiculous part of the film for me is like they're all of a sudden together, right? Alone. George Clooney and this girl who probably have nothing in common. And all of a sudden they get out of it because they're shooting, bullets in the air, there's sunlight coming through, and then they hear Carlos and he's like, "Oh, another bang, like I'll knock down this door or whatever," and he knocks it down, and then I'm Hispanic, so I can say that, and then the sunlight comes in, and then it kills all these vampires, and they come out, they're all bloody, and it's all just like chill all of a sudden, because
Yeah,
George Clooney's a sociopath, so that makes sense, right?
yeah,
And then he's just like talking to this guy, and they're like, you know, uh, bro, you just set me up. My brother's dead. Her whole fucking family is dead.
yeah.
It's all because of you. What the hell? And he's like, why did you pick this place? He's like, oh, I drove by it a few times, man. Like, I didn't know. Like,
It looked pretty
was it
cool,
between
man.
this bar and another bar? I thought it was from dusk till dawn. You wanted to be picked up in the morning, man. Like super chill. And then he argues with him, and he's like, all right, you owe me for this, man. And he's like, what do you mean? And he's like, I'm not giving you 30%. I'm only giving you 10%. And he's like, all right, 28%. And he's like, no, 20%. And then he's like, no, 25. And he's like, all right, 25. And they shake hands. It's like totally nihilistic, totally sociopathic. But what's interesting to me is that the girl is also kind of like totally just apathetic about everything that happened, right?
I mean, she's probably still in shock, to be fair.
Maybe, but I mean, I don't know. I kind of got this vibe where she's like, "Hey, like George Clooney, can I take a ride with you?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"Yo, I'm a bastard," which is pretty much like he sums up his character with this one line. He's like, "I'm a bastard, but I'm not a
Mm.
fucking bastard," right? Which
Mm.
basically describes his moral character, right?
Yeah. He
So his
doesn't.
brother was a fucking bastard. He's just
Yeah.
a bastard.
Yeah.
And then he says no, which you'd think if he's a hardened criminal, it's like this hot, like doe-eyed, like virgin Christian girl. It's like I just defeated all these vampires with you, like I'll live with you forever. Basically, is kind of what she's implying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
like, nah, get out of here. Do you know where I'm going? Like, screw
Yeah.
you, drive home.
Yeah.
And then she drives home with this kind of look on her face. She walks to her van, like, and I'm sure she's still in shock, yeah. But it was just kind of strange to me. I thought it ended kind of strange with her reaction in particular.
Yeah. And it is actually sort of it is good that he rejected her, obviously, because it's like, well, what sort of life would they like? She presumably still has like family and like school and everything like back in the
Right.
states, and she can just drive back. So, um, yeah. And then I guess we have our final little twist is everyone's driving away, and then the camera pulls back, and we see that behind the bar, it's actually a giant like Aztec temple.
Yeah, it was a cool ending, right? I mean, it kind of like gave a little bit of like plausible reasoning for why this is that it happens to be at the top of a Aztec sacrificial temple where the heads would have rolled off, right?
Yeah, so
Which
it's
is plausible.
yeah, and I really liked that. I thought that was
Mhm.
um, yeah. I wish there was more movies about like Aztec human sacrifice stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought the movie was very cool, but I mean, there was like a lot of explicit satanic elements. I felt, not very disturbed, but like when you see watch a horror movie, you feel like a little bit disturbed. It's like very slight, like not a
Yeah,
lot, which is almost like I for the next movie that we get into, I almost feel like it was a blessing that I watched this movie first because I had that little bit of a disturbance where when we watched the Wholesome Chungus next movie,
yeah,
2008 like young adult film, it was almost refreshing, right? Like
yeah, yeah. I
visually, because I would watch them back to back.
yeah, I watched them like one day apart. So I watched Dusk Till Dawn like 2 days ago, and I watched Twilight like yesterday my time. So um, I guess I don't know what else do we have to say about From Dusk Till Dawn. Like go watch it. It's really good. You basically get 45 minutes of a good like Tarantino film, and then 45 minutes of a really good 80s horror film.
Yeah, kind of. I agree. It goes from like this kind of very smart, almost intellectual kind of pop culture, like pop comic-y, like Pulp Fiction-y, I guess,
Yeah,
kind of thing, where it's like it's being silly, but there's some intellect to it, and then it degrades slowly over time, but at a consistent rate, where it's not like all of a sudden this movie's, what it is. It's just like it purposefully. I think it's very smart how it purposefully degrades into this kind of like cheesy horror film, and
yeah,
then it's still cool. And it also like I feel like it descends into cheese right after the first vampire appearance. But then it kind of, if you look at it on a slope, it goes back up again to be less cheesy. I think
yeah,
once they're coming out the second time, and then
yeah,
I think it was really cool how George Clooney like convinces the pastor who, for the reason he's not faithful, by the way, is because his wife passed away, and George Clooney knows that. And
yeah,
George Clooney, I think my favorite part of the film was George Clooney convincing a man of God who's lost his faith to believe in God again. Because even though he's a total sicko sociopath kind of guy,
yeah,
rationally, he's like, these are demons from hell. You're a pastor. If you don't believe in God, you're an idiot. We're
yeah,
dealing with hell, so obviously God has to exist, dude. You're
yeah,
screwing us. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I love that. I just love the pragmatic aspect of this guy is a total, he feels nothing, right? His soul is not in touch with God. He's just saying, logically speaking, you're just dumb, right? For not believing in God at this point. We're dealing with vampires here, dude. Like, you can bless holy water. I thought that was so cool. I thought it was my favorite part of the movie, to be honest.
yeah, yeah,
It's like how out of a survival situation, someone who's such a thug, criminal mindset could do better apologetics than his own pastor could have done to his kids.
yeah. Uh,
And to me, it almost shows the truth, of God. Like if how like when you're cornered, it's like anyone says, right? The plane's fallen.
yeah,
You're praying to God, Mister Atheist.
yeah. I think yeah. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it a Christian film, but I mean like
Absolutely not. No, it's not.
the no, you wouldn't have this on like the Hallmark Channel or wherever they put those
No,
movies.
no,
But I like movies where evil is evil, and I mean I like sometimes it's good to have nuance, but it's refreshing because literally every piece of media nowadays it's like, oh, this is about vampires, but the vampires are the good guys, or it's like, oh, this is about Satan, but Satan's like a
right.
cool guy, or it's like, oh, this is
Well, I
about
do.
yeah, whatever.
I do have a little bit more of a Jay Dyer. Love you, bro. By the way, Jay Dyer kind of like esoteric, like higher level analysis about this film. I feel like it could be interpreted as a metaphor for the way Hollywood actors and these kind of famous people get inducted into these situations where because I've been there too. I think a lot of guys who were teens or whatever can been there. I'm gonna go to the strip club. I'm gonna drink, right? And you're not paying attention to the satanic elements around you, right?
Mm,
Because it's just like, bro, I'm at a strip. I like the tits. I'm getting drunk, because that's kind of the George Clooney mindset, right?
yeah,
George Clooney he's not a Satanist, right? He,
yeah.
he's just a total. I don't even know. I forget what the word is. Guy who likes
Hedonist.
thrill, right? A hedonist a little bit, but he really just likes the thrill. He likes to win. He's not even really a hedonist. He would probably say hedonism is wrong, right? He's that kind
Yeah,
of guy as well, right? He's not very like thinking about it. He's just like, yeah, who doesn't like tits and drinking, right? And he
yeah,
sees this, right? It's like you go to a strip bar. I've been to strip bars when I was younger and wasn't very religiously, spiritually aware. And you see these kind of satanic things, you ignore them. You're like, bro, I'm at a strip bar. Of course they're doing this weird shit. And I think it's a lot of like this kind of metaphor for Hollywood
mm,
people getting into this lifestyle, and then they realize the people around them are vampires, right?
yeah,
And then if you're not careful around these vampires, which may be a metaphor for people who kind of manipulate you, abuse you, cause you to do things that are harmful to you, right? That might be what a metaphor of what a
yeah,
vampire is, someone who tries to take your energy to a certain degree, right? And these Hollywood people, a lot of these actors, they go into this. Quentin Tarantino, even probably, right, has experienced this, and maybe he's not even against it. He's just writing about what he's felt, right? And it's like, if you get bit, right, if you get too sucked into it, then you don't have the option to leave again, right? I think that is a lot of what the vampire metaphor is, and I kind of saw it as a little bit of that too. Like, why would Tarantino write this? Even if did he really just write this as like a joke? I don't think so. I think there's
yeah,
a little bit of meaning behind everything. I don't think pure jokes, like, oh, it's just silly, actually exists. I think if you listen to a lot of what they're saying, like, I don't believe in vampires. Well, they're obviously right in front of you, right? I wrote that
yeah,
was a very meta comment. So I kind of like, if you want to look at this at a higher level, it could be a metaphor for that kind of thing, right? Where getting sucked into this Hollywood kind of thing, and if you get in too deep, you can't get out, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. You become one of them.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's fair analysis.
Yeah, yeah. I think yeah, definitely. That's. I mean, I think that's one thing I like about this movie and older movies in general is um, they still have like that semblance of more old school morality, even if it's sort of maybe the dressings aren't quite as wholesome, I guess,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
And I mean, like, this film wasn't very wholesome, but it was, probably more wholesome than it would have been than if it was made today, I think.
Well, it wouldn't be made
Um,
today.
that's true. That's a good point too.
It just wouldn't make sense, like
That's true.
in today's moral landscape, to have a movie like this, or in the horror landscape today, or in anything. It's very much a product of its time, of the 90s. Like, only in the 90s could you get a movie that is like this, really. In my opinion, at least.
I would agree with that 100%. I think it's that. I mean, that was one of the other cool parts of it. They got to say a lot of things just more casually that people used to say casually that you wouldn't
Yeah,
have been allowed to say today.
yeah. Um, all right, well, we've discussed that. We recommend it. Twilight.
100%. Yeah, recommend that movie to everyone.
Now time for Twilight.
Twilight. This is gonna be. I think it's gonna be the more fun part of the stream because I was surprised by Twilight. I have to say.
That's how I felt. I'm like,
I
damn,
wanted to just shit on it.
this movie's just good. It's just like a straight up, just like nice, wholesome, more
Yeah.
or less wholesome film about like two autistic people falling in love, and I can get behind that.
Well, I have to ask you a question, Flood.
Mm.
Do you have a sister?
Yes, but she did not read these books.
Okay, because I have a sister, and like my relationship to these vampire type things was from at first bullying my sister, of course, because I was in high
Yes.
school, she was like in middle school for this Twilight shit. But then later on, like even recently, like 2 years ago, whatever, like I would watch Vampire Diaries with her, whatever, just watching it, like,
Yeah.
'cause she liked it for nostalgia, and it wasn't that bad. So like a lot of this movie reminded me of like, well, Little Sister, because I feel like it was the genre of
Yeah.
what this is little sister book is almost what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's who the audience is your little sister.
Yeah.
So I went in it with it wanting to hate on it, and I was surprised honestly. I thought it was enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say I went into it not expecting it to really be that bad, just because it was made like 13 years ago. It was made like just before all this MCU stuff took off, and the the writing, um, the just the general filmmaking or whatever is like perfectly fine. It's perfectly acceptable. The only movies that I really struggle to sit through are like, I guess, yeah, pretty much just modern, most like films that got made in the last 5 years. Anything from before then, it's like, it's just sort of nice. Um, but this movie is like pretty well written, pretty well made. I like the dialogue, honestly. Like, even if it is like a little corny at times, it just works because of like who the characters are. And honestly, people always shit on Bella for like not having a personality, but she does have a personality, and she's like actually nice to people. Like the guy goes up to her and like asks her out at one point. I'm just giving general impression, and she says, "Oh, I don't know, blah blah blah." But actually, Anna Kendrick has a crush on you, so you should ask her out. So it's not like she's like help. She's anyway. I like this movie. I like this movie. It's a good movie, I must say. I would sit through this before I would watch, I don't know, Ant-Man or something. That's my general impression.
Yeah, I mean, so I didn't actually think she was a bad actress until certain scenes. So certain scenes she's pretty bad, but I think she plays the role very well. I think
Yeah,
she does have good emotions. She's kind of better when she's not doing emotions. I feel like
yeah,
the idea of her like being bad is when like there's one scene in particular that I wrote out. I was like, "Woo, the acting really dropped the ball."
yeah,
But I think in general she was good at the role she played. I mean, what is she's playing this introvert girl? We all
yeah,
know this kind of girl. She likes to read books. One of the things I really liked about the film, so the film essentially is like she's moving to a new town because her mom married a guy and he's a baseball player and he's moving around. So she used to live with her dad. A little bit of daddy issues thing, but not like severely where it's like a problem, right?
yeah,
She meets these Native American Samoans, but then what happens is that like she's in this new town, but she's not a loser, which is what I really liked about the film. The film would have been horrible if she was like the new kid that was also like everyone
bullied.
hates, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
would have hate that. That's what I thought the film was going to be like, and I was ready to hate it. And as soon as I realized like she was actually just pretty much well accepted, like any other new kid, like a cool new kid, right? So the cool
yeah,
new kid isn't accepted. It's not accepted day one, but like day three, he's fine. And I
yeah,
thought that was like as soon as I saw that, I was like almost like took a sigh of relief. Like okay, like this might be good, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'll say I think the best part of the film is probably the first act. Like I really like
Yeah,
that where it's introducing the characters and you get the most comical stuff between her and Robert Pattinson. What's his
yeah.
actual name again? Edward Cullen.
Edward Cullen is the
Yeah,
real name. I actually like no homo. I like almost identified with the girl a little bit because she's uncoordinated like me. She's introverted, right? But she still has friends. Like
yeah,
that was me in high school. I was so bad at sports. I was introverted, but I still had friends because I had nothing better to do. It's
yeah,
like almost like a hobby. But she's very aloof to her friends.
yeah.
She doesn't actually like care about them, but they still like her. That was me in high
Yes,
school, and that's
yes,
how I still am. Honestly, it's like I was hopping through friends groups, but like I didn't actually care about anyone as much as they cared about me. It's kind of fucked up. But like I was
yeah,
also very interested in other stuff, so I identified with her. Unfortunately, which
yeah.
I wasn't expecting.
Um,
She's very
so
selfish and a little. She's a little selfish,
yeah,
because
towards the end.
she's almost too like I'm gonna go hang out with Edward. Like screw you guys who have been nice to me this whole time.
Yeah, well, I mean that's standard teenage behavior, I
Yeah,
suppose. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I was watching this with um certain people, and they were saying that it was just like a visual novel to them.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what
It
that was their
wasn't as bad.
impression.
I watched the honest trailer. Unfortunately, unfortunately, before I watched the actual movie, and I thought it was after I watched the actual movie, I thought the honest trailer summary was horrible. You
Yeah,
know.
honest. There's a lot of those like clickbaity, like cinema sins and all of that. They're
Mhm.
just. I mean, that's their shtick. It's like making videos, making fun of movies for 12-year-olds or whatever. Whatever. But
Because I have to say, like the aesthetics of the movie were very cool.
yes, I wish because I'm assuming it was shot on digital. I wish it was shot on film.
Hmm.
Because it just um, I don't know. Like I know it was supposed to be like washed out and lifeless, but I feel like it could have it like if it had have been less digital looking. I don't know. It would have looked a lot nicer. I think. Like I'm trying to think. What's a movie? I don't know. It could have been more like I don't know if you know Barry Lyndon, or it could have been
Mm,
more. I don't know. Like it was like washed out the look, which I
yeah, it
liked,
was.
but I don't know. It lacked a kind of. I guess if it was on
It was.
film, it could have had a bit more poignancy to how it looked. It would have felt there would have been something
It
more
had a
grainy about
very
it.
2008 computer vibe to it,
Yeah, which
100%.
and for what it is, I'm not expecting like Kubrick's cinematography or anything, but I'm just
Which,
saying.
by the way, like I think one of the reasons I like the movie is that 2008 was my peak high school, right? Like I was 16, so I was just I lived that, so I was like kind of cool, like looking it back now,
Yeah,
like that era, you know.
yeah, it is so weird. It was weird rewatching it because I think I've seen it once or twice before, maybe. You know, um, but yeah, it was very nostalgic, very cozy going back to it. What else? What else is there to talk about with it? Yeah, Bella goes to a new school. I mean, everyone knows the plot. Like, she meets Edward Cullen, they fall in love, basically. And then I think
Yeah,
the worst parts of the film are the like shaky cam scenes where like there's other vampires are like killing people. They were kind of lame, I thought. Um, and like the ending sucked. The ending was kind of lame. It was just so it just felt very rushed, obviously. Um,
yeah. I think the problem started to come in on like towards the second half. I mean, for me, once I started to get like, oh, I get why people hate this movie, was the power reveal kind of situation.
yeah,
To when they went into the mossy forest, and he's like, "I am so strong," or whatever he says. It's just so cheesy, and the special
mm.
effects are horrible in this movie. I have to say, the
I
last
don't
fight is
mind.
cool. The last fight is cool, but like the climbing through the tree stuff, I thought was very, very Spider-Man kind of the first movie.
Yeah,
Tier special effects. I don't know. I wasn't buying it, but I think we can go back to the beginning of the movie when she's
yeah,
first
okay,
meeting
okay,
Edward.
all right, yeah,
Um,
yeah. So she's gone to this new high school. She's made friends. Everyone likes her. And then she sees Edward Cullen walk in, and she's just like, oh, "Who's that?" Basically, and
I literally wrote that line down. Who's that? Edward Cullen, baby.
and he looks so. He's so good in this movie. He's so like their interaction. I love the first scene like they have together like in in biology class. They're supposed to be
Yeah,
partners, and he's just like
he's
looking
so.
at with her with abject
Yeah.
disgust.
But he's also so blood horny that it's like even before I watched the film, right? Like I knew a little bit about it, but I could already tell. Like that was the cool thing about the film, or maybe it was not a good. Depends what your perspective is. A lot of things could be just figured out that they don't explain. Like that he's just
Yeah,
so blood horny in the beginning, and then he disappears,
yeah,
and then he comes back later, and you're like, what happened? And she's like, oh, your eyes changed. And then immediately my brain, maybe my sister told me this like 5 years ago, but I was just like, oh, it's because he like fed recently, so he's not blood horny anymore. Even though they don't explain it ever in the movie.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Like she was like, your eyes are so black, and now they're hazel glowing, and it's like in my
Oh
mind I was
yeah,
like, it's because
no,
he's fed,
that's one of the
you
best
know?
lines actually. So
Yeah.
she's like, "Why are your eyes different?" And he's like, "The fluorescence," and then just like walks away.
And they never actually explain why his eyes are different.
It's like the
I'm
fluorescence
assuming the
doesn't
book.
elaborate, walks away.
So I just like intuition. Maybe my sister told me that like the book says that it's because he recently like ate a raccoon
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
So like, I
Um,
don't know. But I think one thing that we need to talk about is like the tension that is filmed early on in the film and throughout the film between the way it's formatted between Bella and Edward is a lot of staring and a lot of like her lip
biting.
shivering and his lip shivering, right? It's a lot of
Yeah,
lips are very their expression of like, you
yeah,
know, how how much they want each other in different ways. Because he
yeah,
obviously wants her blood that smells very
yeah,
good, and she wants, whatever she wants.
yeah. And a lot of people complain like about, I don't know, certain aspects of the romance, like he's 109, she's 17 or
Yeah,
whatever.
I did comment about that. Yeah,
Um, and I guess like he's sort of like the thing is he's not even that stalkerish in this. Like he's a vampire. What else is he gonna do at
mm,
night? He's just hanging out with his GF.
he's pretty stalkerish, but I mean, like, what are you gonna do? Well, I think it's interesting. Like, how does the perpetual junior year of high school work for the vampires? I don't think that was very explained.
I guess it's just like they do.
Every year they
Well, they
re-enroll.
no, it must be like I guess they would. Yeah, it didn't really make sense, but it's like I guess either they move around or maybe every like 10 or 20 years or so they go and they do 3 years of high school for something to do.
I don't know. I was hoping for like a memory wipe explanation or something, but
Hmm.
'cause, I mean, he said when she asked him like, "How old are you?" Which is like what I do to girls on Twitter. It's like they're like, "I'm 17." I'm like, "Yeah, I've been 17 for 100 years." It was just what he said. Joke, by the way.
um,
I
yeah,
thought that was a good
I mean,
excuse, right?
that's the most classic line. Like that's the line everyone knows. Like, how long have you been 17?
Yeah,
I love that.
for 100 years.
I love that.
It's so good.
Um, what else is
I
there?
did my whole thing though. I think like a lot of the framing, and at least the existential question for me watching this whole film is Bella hot.
I'll say this
That's what
much. I'll
I
say this
five
much.
different times I wrote in my notes. Five different points throughout the movie. I wrote, is she hot though, or does her blood smell good? Like I'm not a vampire, I can't smell her blood, but they told me it smells good. So like, is she hot? That's what I was wondering.
Mm, I'll say this much. Anna Kendrick was very cute in it.
Hmm.
I'll
She
say
is,
that
but
much.
like, in certain scenes is my thing. In
Mm.
certain angles, like you know what I mean. Like I think she's pretty. Like, you know what I mean. Like I just couldn't decide if she's hot. Like I'm not saying like
Kristen
she's
Stewart.
ugly at all. Yeah, Kristen Stewart. Yeah, Kristen Stewart. Whatever. Whoever Bella. I'm
Oh
saying
no, I
talking
was
about
saying
Bella.
Anna Kendrick. That was another one of that. That was a different actress.
Oh no, I was talking about Bella.
Oh
I
okay.
was
Well,
like
I was
my
making a
whole.
joke. It's okay. It's okay. We're on.
Oh, okay,
Okay,
okay.
Bella.
My bad.
What will I say?
I feel like
I'll
the
say
whole thing is like, is she hot? She's very questionably like on the borderline of like hot or just like
cute.
decent, like good to look at. Yeah, it's
Yeah, you
cute.
wouldn't. You
Yeah, hot
wouldn't.
or
I
cute.
mean, I think first of all, she dresses plainly because that's her personality.
Mhm.
So it's not like she's putting on lipstick and wearing yoga pants and blah blah blah. So I don't. I think it's like that she doesn't dress in a way where it activates our like almonds activated type moment. You know what I mean? Neurons activated type moment. In the same way, I don't know. She's cute. I like. What am I gonna say? No, I wouldn't date Kristen Stewart. I mean, probably I wouldn't for different reasons. Obviously, she's like 40 or something now.
Yeah, is she really?
I don't know how old she is.
I remember seeing her
She
like
will. She would have been 20. She'd be 30 something now. Maybe you can date her then.
yeah. Well, I knew a girl named Bella, and she was really obsessed with me, so that's another reason why I hated this film. No, I'm kidding. I don't want to get into that, but that was a
Yeah,
psychological
tell me about.
factor.
Oh, so yeah, where did you go to high school? Like, what's your last name? What,
Yeah,
it's Bella?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, she did kind of look like her too, so that's maybe why I was pondering if she's hot or not the whole time.
Ah,
Like,
you're
I literally wrote
pondering.
it down like 5 different times, contemplating really.
Mm. One thing I wanted to mention, which I thought was interesting, I don't know what the esoteric meaning is here. We might have to call up Jay Dyer.
We might have to for a hotel.
there was uh, in their biology class, like the guy says, "Oh, whoever does the best on this project will win a golden onion."
Mm,
Do you
yeah, that's
remember
true.
that?
I
Like,
do, yes.
what is that about? That's weird. Like, who,
I
like,
didn't think about it.
where, like, was that in the book? Was that
We can
like
do it. We can do a quick Google here. Golden
golden
onion.
onion meaning? And I guess we have to also
Esoteric.
say the book was written by a Mormon woman, so
Oh well, there you go.
there's probably is weird Freemason stuff in
So,
it.
onion conspiracy. All right. So there's this whole thing: left brain, right brain, esoteric onions. Repeat a
Oh,
lie often enough, it becomes the truth. The law of propaganda is the truth. Whatever. That's just. I don't know. This could be a shit website, but there's probably something about that. I think it's interesting though. Like I was actually like unimpressed with the occult references in this vampire film. As cheesy as the previous movie was, um, it's obviously be easy to be like a cult when you're talking about Satan and
yeah.
vampires and stuff. But I think when she was the scene when she was like looking up, esoteric facts about the Washington State city that she lived in that was all cloudy, the legends or whatever. Like she like what she was reading was like a GeoCities website, like angelfire.com, Satanism. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, that was really funny
it's
when she
like
was like doing the
cheesy, like
research. That was so dumb.
yeah,
It looked
like
like
nothing deep was ever stated.
it looked like one of those like esoteric like Sonnenrad edits or something.
Yeah, yeah, from like 2008. Like it
Yeah.
was just very on point, I guess. But it was just funny.
I think they should have made it a golden garlic. I'm sorry, I'm still on this golden onion thing.
Yeah, if it was a garlic, it would make
It would
more
make
sense. You're
sense. Like
right.
what? Like why is it? I'm just so. Is it like?
It's just a tie into the Shrek films, bro. That's what it is. Because Shrek's an onion, so it's like, no, I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Like I
Stupid
really
joke.
want to know why they made it a golden. Is I don't know. It's just so
Hmm.
bizarre. Because the thing is, it's not even like because in a lot of movies people will put like weird details in as like some sort of joke, in an Edgar Wright film or so a lot of movies do things like that, but it's just such a weird thing to pick a golden. I don't know. I don't know. I'm overthinking it. I think I'm overthinking this movie possibly.
No,
Um.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I remember that scene explicitly, and I could not find a meaning to it.
Um. All right, we'll move
Maybe the
on.
books. I think one of the things I noticed about this movie actually is that there was a lot of scenes. You know when you can tell that it's like, oh, this is something about the book that they threw in there haphazardly and didn't do it correctly.
Yeah.
Right. I'll get to one of those moments a little bit later in the. It happens a little bit later in the film, but there was a couple of moments where I was like, this is clearly one of those things that was like a detail in the book that they had to mention, but they didn't flesh out or do anything with.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think.
I
Yeah.
feel like
Maybe.
the onion thing might be one of those.
Yeah. It must be. I
One of
don't know.
those Harry Potter, like, oh yes, like the wizardry shop mentioned this thing that, like, it's just a fan service basically to the book
Yeah.
readers.
Um. Then we have the bit where he saves her from the van, and that's pretty funny. Uh,
Very Superman. Yeah, all of a sudden he becomes Superman.
um, and then they're at the hospital, and then he's just like gaslighting her. It's like I was standing next
He
to you the
really
whole
is,
time.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
love that.
he
That was so funny.
aggressively gaslights her.
It's like
And he's a dick to her a little bit too. He's kind of like,
yeah. It's like you
the
eat
whole time.
shit. Yeah. Oh, and then at one point later on, they're talking again, and then I don't know what they're talking about, but he says, Google it. And I'm just 2008. I mean, Google was already a
So
big thing by then, but it's
what
like,
he says is because she eventually approaches him like the next day at school because they were like not talking, and he like stalks her or whatever, and he's like, and she's like, well, why don't you tell me what's going on? And his excuses for how he stopped the van was, I had an adrenaline rush. It's a real thing. Google it. So that's what he
it's a
says.
real thing. Google it.
Yeah, like
I'm a
so we're already
Sigma male.
approaching
Google it.
modern day. I mean, that was 2008 though. Like 2008, like there was no Twitter. Twitter came out I think the next year. There was no. I mean, the internet was very involved in the world. Like Google was already like a phenomenon. It was
Yeah,
just
but
like
it's like,
it was more Facebook, MySpace kind of
do
shit.
you, did they say Google it? Maybe they said Google it in the books.
No, I mean, yeah, we said Google it back then, 100%.
I know, but it's like it's weird to have it in a movie. Like,
When that movie came out, that was already like what everyone said all the time. It was very common.
I know, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh,
Google
you're
it.
asking if they said it in the books? I think so. I think Google it was like pretty early. I think Google
Oh
it
no,
became a
I'm
thing
not
pretty early.
debating whether or not when Google it became a thing. It's more like
Yeah.
it's a weird. It's a I don't know. It's a weird term of like you don't hear it in movies. In movies, everyone just says look it up. That's what I'm
Right,
saying.
right.
So I'm
I think yeah,
curious.
might be the young adult factor there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, maybe that's it then. Okay, that makes sense. I don't know. It just stuck out to me a little bit. I don't know. I find it like the things that have stuck out to me in this movie are just like very small weird details.
It is a very, I mean, because it like the whole movie it has these very cool concepts, but like it's not even like that it's poorly executed. It's just like all these little weird parts that like are bad about it that don't fit into this cool thing that it could have been. I feel like I don't know if you got the same impression. It's
Um,
like all these minor flaws like that.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would. I think the central. I think the issue is because they had to. They were planning on making it a series and they wanted to follow the books. They couldn't make it more self-contained. So like, in a normal film, you don't introduce the villain in the last 15 minutes and then the villain then
Right.
you completely change the plot. Like you can do that in a book because that's how books have no structure, but if I was going to rewrite it, you would make it one of Edward's siblings or whatever is the one that wants to kill Bella. That's how you would write it.
Right.
If you were going to make it, condense it, because that was my only on a structural level of the film's plot or whatever. That was my only issue with it, I suppose. Um,
I think it was just all these minor things that were like. I
yeah,
think it was just poor exposition of the lore is really what bothered me. But we'll get to that, I think, a little bit
yeah.
later. So, what
Um,
happens next is that after what my note for that scene that you mentioned was Superman that hoe. So that's what he does. He Supermans that hoe by stopping that van, and then I ask again if Bella's hot. But then I say, he starts staring at her when she's sleeping. She
mm,
starts dreaming about him. She's questioning about him. She finds out later this whole adrenaline rush thing, and then she has a little bit of tension with the werewolf people who are not. We don't find out that they're werewolves in this movie, but we know they're werewolves. Just from social media, pop culture, right? This Native American that happens to be all Samoan tribe are a bunch of
yes,
werewolves. You know,
yes,
they're actually closer to you than me for whatever reason, even though they're supposed to be Native Americans. and they kind of are like, hey, what are you doing with these people? Whatever. And then you're introduced to the villains, right? And the villains eat this guy on a boat. You've
yeah,
got this black Jamaican vampire, this dude who's got like crazy blonde hair, and this other white girl who's got crazy blonde hair, and they eat this guy, right? And that's like a big, I think, turning point in the film.
yes. And I love how it's almost like comical, like out of The Simpsons or something. Like, oh, it was an animal attack. And it's like I can almost imagine like, um, I don't know, like the body just like comically like destroyed or whatever. I don't know. There's something funny about it to me, just like attributing it to animals. Um,
Yeah, when I think it's fair. Like, how else are you gonna even write that at that point,
oh yeah,
right?
yeah. No, I know.
It's
It's
like Well, how do you write yourself out of that? That like it's clearly a vampire attack. You just gotta say it's some like beaver or something that like
Yeah,
bit into his
yeah,
neck.
yeah. Like, why would an animal be like? It didn't make any sense. Like, I just thought it
Oh
was.
yeah,
I just thought that was funny. Like, there was some of the details that didn't make any sense. You know, the way they were presented in the film, at least. Okay, I'm not gonna. We're not here to discuss the book. Maybe the book it's brilliant. Maybe it's.
yeah. I don't think it is, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
But it's just funny. Yeah, like I don't know. Yeah, Animal Attack is funny. I love the dad. We didn't discuss the dad. This as well. You know,
I love
Mustache Man
I have
Carp.
to say, he's my favorite character in the whole film. I'm not being ironic at all. Um, I think like that one scene that we might get to later, like I literally wrote like I almost cried during this. Like I
Oh,
think the dad is just
when she does the like,
yeah,
go on boy, get. We don't want you around here no more type thing.
yeah, no, I almost cried. Yeah, I feel like the
That's
character I
brutal.
projected myself on in this film was the dad, because he was just such a like introverted cop, just wanted to like find out who's killing his friends, like good guy, you know, and then like he gets the blunt end of the stick. His wife divorced him. You know, he
Oh,
loves his daughter. He's like, welcome to my shit. I know this place sucks. We're in Washington State. It's cloudy all the time. You know, you go to the beach when it's mostly cloudy. It's horrible. I even wrote that, like, right? Like, they're all like, let's go to the beach. It's like slightly sunny a little bit today. You know, that's Washington. It's like, you know, you just want a neck. And then it's like, this dad is just like, I know it sucks, but like, I love you, honey. And like, oh, I identify with that guy so much.
um,
When she's at the diner with him, and he's like, oh, you should talk to more people because like you just been keeping to yourself. And she's like, I'm just like you, dad. You keep to yourself too. And he's like, oh
uh,
shucks. I'm like, man, I want that with
damn,
my daughter.
that's
You know,
brutal.
like that's goals for me. I want a daughter that's just like, hell yeah, we just ignore people.
Yeah. Um, what was I gonna? Oh, I guess the one thing we sort of skipped over a little bit was the revelation that they are shiny in the sun.
Yeah. Okay, so that whole scene. So we have to back up a little bit there. So she eventually like looks up some book. All right, so we gotta rewind to things. So she what she does, she looks up on the internet. She actually Googles shit, right? She follows his advice, but Googles different stuff. She finds some bookstore that's run by one of those Native Americans, and then her friends are like, "Oh, let's go buy prom dresses," and she's like, "Oh, I can't go to prom because I gotta go to Jacksonville," which is hilarious because Jacksonville is like such a meme as a Floridian, you know. So
Yes.
you know, it actually is one of the jokes in the film is how stupid Jacksonville is. and then and they go to try out these dresses, and then she goes like she's like, I don't care about your dresses, I'm gonna go to this bookstore, right? She
Yeah.
goes to this bookstore, and then she buys the esoteric book, and then she
She
leaves,
buys
and then she,
Metaphysics of War by Evola.
yeah, she buys some Evolin like tantra book about vampires, and then she walks away, and then what happens? These like 10 dudes decide
Oh
like
yeah,
they're
we forgot
really
about
horny
that.
for her. Yeah,
That didn't make
it's
any
very
sense. Yeah, small
doesn't
town.
make any sense at all. It's like all of a sudden these 10 dudes that have had 3 beers each just want
Yeah.
to rape her. And
It's it's such a Mormon like view of like what alcohol does to
it,
you.
it is honestly the stupidest shit ever. It's probably one of the lowest parts of the film where she's walking down like the stereotypical dark alleyway too.
Yeah,
Like she's
like
like, I bought this book. Let me go down this dark alleyway. I even wrote like, why is she walking down the rape alleyway? You know, and she's walking down there, la la la, and all of a sudden, 10 drunk dudes that had like 3 beers are like pushing her, like, hey, she doesn't want this. Yeah, she does. She wants us. Whatever. Edward Cullen comes in on like his Corvette or whatever, like drifts in. You know, comes in. I read all their minds. They were wanting to rape you. That's sick. And he just knocks them all out with like kung fu moves. Puts her in the car. They drive back. Wild stuff, but it's
I
probably
just
one of the lowest parts of the film.
I mean, it is hilarious though. I love like it's not even she's like just one she's like just behind the main street.
Yeah,
It's not like she's off two different side roads or anything. It's like
she like purposely walked down the sketchiest alley.
I mean it didn't make any it was Like,
it's like where Batman's
Where was the
parents
bar
died.
relative to where they were? Like, it didn't make any sense. It was so silly. It was very
Yeah,
funny.
she left. She went to a bookstore, and then she went to where Batman's parents got killed. Alley, like that's where she went. It's like the stupidest thing ever. Edward Cullen picks her up in like this sick car, and that's where like they first like start like being a thing.
Yeah,
And then he drives her home, whatever, and he's like, "Yeah, I can like read everyone's mind, but you." Never explained why, by the way, but that's apparently a thing.
yeah,
So Edward Cullen can read anyone's mind. So he's reading all these drunk dudes' minds, and they're like, raper, killer. And he's like, they're disgusting. And he's like, but I can't read your mind. And also your blood smells good. So like that's why he likes her.
yeah,
Drives her home, and then that's where they fall in love.
yeah,
And then she reads the book, figures out he's a vampire, and then they go to the big reveal scene, which I think for me, like, is when I started to be like, okay, I can see why people think this movie is cringe. It's like he's showing off his really fast powers, and he's like, "I am the greatest predator," like in the
yeah. That
moss
was
forest.
so lame. That was so
It's
lame.
probably the lamest parts of the movie are in that moment.
Yeah, I will say like this movie is at its best when it's not doing anything supernatural. It's just like the characters interacting.
Definitely, definitely.
Just because I think uh, the nature of the powers in the book and the tone of the rest of it, of the film and the story, do not translate to film at all. Like having people like run around and like jump between trees does not translate to film for like a romantic teen drama thing. It just looks so goofy.
Yeah, it looks really silly. And then they're in this moss forest, and like they're like staring at each other really closely, but not kissing. And he's like, "Oh, so it was funny because before this whole scene happened, I typed out in bold because I thought it was such a genius comment. I'm such a narcissist. Because at this point in the film, Edward could easily just have a heroin and crack cocaine addiction, and this movie would still make sense. Because if you look at his facial expressions, it's true, right?
Now that would be a good movie. I guess that is they.
But then listen to this. So I wrote that, right. Just watch him because he's so blood horny, right? Like he's always looking at her and like biting his lip and like freaking out. Later on, when they're in the forest, what does he say? You're like a special brand of heroin to me.
Oh, that was so
lame. Who was right? Who was right?
Yeah,
but literally it could be a heroin film.
That would be good, but I mean, yeah, that made me cringe. I hate it's so lame, like comparing love to a drug like that. Like drugs are way better.
But I don't think he's talking about love. I think he's literally talking about her blood is so smelly and delicious that he can't resist it because Well, we have to talk about the Cullen family, or like these vegetarian vampires.
Yeah, which
I'll just go. I was gonna say this at the end, but like I'll just say it. Like the metaphor of the movie is like it's no fap for vampires. Is what the movie's about. Right? So it's like they want to eat the human blood, but they know it's bad. So it's just like they resist it, even though they all want it. It's literally no fap for vampires, so they eat like raccoons and squirrels instead.
Wow, that is very interesting. That is an interesting analysis. I don't think I've ever heard that. Someone, Twilight has been discussed to death, but I don't know if anyone has made that analogy before. So we've broken new ground.
It's just this is factual. It's just factual. I mean, if you watch the movie with this lens, you'll understand what I'm talking about.
Damn, that's so true. What else? What else is there to say? We don't have to go through. We're not going to go through the whole thing in same sort of detail. I don't think. Just trying to think. What else do I have? What else? Oh, the family is cool. I like the family. I like that one of them was like a wigger who wore like a baseball cap at all times.
Dude, so the family was my favorite part of the film, and I think the biggest tragedy of the movie was they did not have enough exposition of the family. So I thought when they went to the house and you saw all the family members and they were cooking the food and stuff. Yeah. That scene was abruptly cut short when she broke the thing in anger, right?
Yeah.
I think it would have been so cool because I thought like the aesthetic of the Cullen family being this rich, wealthy family, So Edward Cullen, if you haven't watched the movie, the reason he's a vampire was that in 1918 he was dying of COVID-19, and the doctor decided that the only way to cure him was to turn him into a vampire.
Yeah.
And also the same thing happened to his wife who had COVID-19. It was actually the Spanish flu. I'm just kidding, but
Yes.
that the same shit, right? So it's like the doctor created these two vampires out of that, but other vampires existed. He introduced them to like this quote unquote vegetarian vampire lifestyle
Yeah.
of we're not going to kill humans because it's kind of this stoic thing, like even though we're demonic beings,
Yeah.
we're going to have this morality to us, we're going
Yeah.
to have this self-control, which is respectable. But
Um.
I loved the family so much and they didn't show them enough, I feel like. And
Yes.
naturally, like, I wanted to know each character individually and I never got that.
Yeah. I assume that maybe if you read the books, they probably get more characterization. I think it's just
Mm-hmm.
like it's just unfortunate that they had to. I guess they tried to follow the book structure. I mean, this is the problem with the film, and this is why probably the first part of the movie is the best. Is because they weren't bogged down by trying to include just like all these little just like superficial details from the book. Um, sorry, and that sort of can bog things down where they have tried to be slavish to the book, but they're trying to make a series, so it makes sense why they did it like they did. But yeah, it is. The family is really cool. They all look really cool. I love the Wicca one, and I love the one that's like only just started becoming vegetarian. So he's just like he looks like he's like recovering from some sort of weird addiction, I guess, which is makes sense.
Yeah, he was like a new initiate to the philosophy and he
Yeah.
just had this like phrase look like I cannot touch you.
Mm.
You know, and I mean, I thought like I really liked that they're like making food, and they're like, "Oh, this is the first time we had to use our kitchen, and we're just doing it for you." And they seem like, I really wanted to get to know these characters, and I kind of felt like I was not allowed to, because of time constraints. I'm sure the book does a somewhat better job, although I've heard the book is bad. So, but that could just be BS, you know.
Yeah. Well, we heard this movie was bad, and it's pretty good. So
Yeah, and it's decent. It's actually very watchable. Like,
yeah.
there's a lot of haters, a lot of Twilight haters, which I used to be one of them, but I've converted.
Um. All right. We'll get into. I just want to say as well the vampire dad, Doctor Cullen or whatever. He's so he looks so he just
Aryan.
remind yeah. It was just like he just looked like he'd stepped out of like a Hyperborean edit sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, he does.
You know.
And he's so stoic and like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm the only one that can taste human blood and not be frenzied
Yeah.
because I'm just such a good doctor. You know, I mean, I don't even think like I think even in the context of the film, you could say he's more morally neutral as a vampire than like good, right? So it's like, which makes sense. I don't think a vampire, if you write a vampire as being a good person, you're not writing a vampire correctly, right? So it's like the
Yeah.
Cullens are not these wholly good people, right? They're just they're neutral, right?
Yeah.
They have this kind of stoicism, kind of like Greek
Yeah.
philosophy, like like we're gonna do things in a way that is ethical, like kind of this pagan kind of secular ethics, which is good. It's definitely better than the black guy and the two other people that are just like psycho.
Yeah.
Even the black guy actually apparently has more.
Well, he's
Well,
just a regular vampire. Like he's not. I don't know.
well, what's interesting is when they
I
had
loved
that
him.
baseball
I
game.
wish he had more screen
Yeah,
time. The Jamaican.
I do too. I do. Once I
Yeah,
realized him,
man.
because
That was
because
so good.
I read the books, but I suspected when they had that baseball game and the enemy vampires came, right?
Yeah.
And then they were talking like there was these kind of rules, right? Like we've claimed this land, this is
Yeah.
our land. So like, oh, we didn't know that you guys had claimed this. Like we'll be leaving soon. Don't worry, right? Like that
Yeah.
was the kind of implications that there's these vampiric rules, but we don't really get the details of those in the film, which I feel like
Mm.
that's something in the book. And it
Yeah.
seems like the black guy respects those rules the most, right? Like
Yes.
these ancient kind of vampiric rules. He's like, I've been around for 300 years, right? And he's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
leaving, but I'm telling you, this guy's a psycho, whatever. I thought it would have been a lot very cool to learn more about that. But I understand this movie's made for like 12-year-old girls or whatever. So
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense why it was excluded. But I feel like that's the thing. I feel like this movie has so many cool concepts and like so many potential for like interesting lore dumps, and they
Yeah.
never really give you that. It never really gives you the like. So why do the vampires not attack them directly in the baseball field? Why do they respect these rules? Why are they quote unquote vegetarians? Like, what are the vampiric laws? Right?
I think
Is it like
more is revealed in the later films, I think, and
maybe
also
yeah?
in the books generally. Um, yeah, but it is sort of like if you're looking at this as a self-contained single film, it is lacking because of those things. I think
Right,
we should
right.
backpedal just slightly and discuss the baseball scene itself and just how cool it is. Like I love the music and just like they can only play baseball when it's thunderstorms because the it means the sound will get like everyone will just think it's thunder, not them playing baseball or whatever.
Yeah,
And
no, super cool.
it's like is this baseball bat and ball made from that it's not just like breaking literally every time you hit it, you know. And I love they make Kristen Stewart the ref for it. It's such a cool scene. I really like it.
It was, yeah, it was cool. Oh, interesting. She's the ref, right? And the blonde girl, I don't know her name. She hates her, right? But
Mm.
they don't really expand on that more. Like when she casts her out, and also she's the one that freaked out at the dinner table and stuff when they were making food.
Yeah,
And she's also the one to be like, well, why should we care about her? This blonde character, a
yeah,
vampire. When she tags her out, she grills her, right?
yeah,
Like she walks past her, like stares her in the face, like "fuck you, bitch." Like that never really got elaborated on either. I feel like
yeah,
another problem. I think a lot of the problems that of the film was these cool potentialities that were not, executed on.
yeah. I think they should remake this film series as a TV series. Now that that's the thing that everyone
Yeah,
does,
it would work so much better as a Netflix series.
you know.
But maybe it wouldn't because they would ruin the 2000s vibe.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how they could adapt it. I can't wait till they remake the Harry Potter films. I'm gonna find that so hilarious.
Yeah, it's gonna be horrible. The OGs are so good.
And
I feel like the original Harry Potter films are fantastic. Like I don't care. Like I know a lot of guys on Twitter anti Harry Potter. Like the films are good, dude.
I rate the first two films highly, very highly.
Yeah, I
And
mean they're
then
good movies. Like what are you gonna do with the material at that
yeah, I would
point?
say the subsequent films are not anywhere near as good because they just got different directors, and I didn't like the basically like rip off Tim Burton aesthetic. Whereas the first two had such a unique vibe.
Right.
They felt more like a classic '90s, '80s like kids movie.
It was funny because I lived in Moscow, Russia in the year 2000, and like my grandmother bought me a Harry Potter book, and I read all four of them, and then the fifth one didn't exist,
Yeah.
and then like 5 years later it came out, and like didn't wasn't interested in reading it. I don't remember what the
Wow.
fuck the other book said. You know what I mean?
Damn. I
Like
think
J.K. Rowling didn't write fast enough for me, so like I stopped caring after that point.
I
But I watched
think
the movies.
I think I started reading just as the fifth one was coming out,
Hmm.
and then I did end up reading the sixth and the seventh one, so I have read them all.
It's a good story. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
It's a little bit better than Twilight, but is it that much better? I don't know. I feel like one thing I liked about
Well.
Twilight is one thing I liked about Twilight is that it's not pretentious at all,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that. It doesn't try to be a very smart film, and
Yeah.
and I like the honesty of that kind of thing. It
Yeah.
never tries to be this kind of thing that Harry Potter tries to be, which I think a lot of the reasons people don't like Harry Potter is
Yeah.
it tries to be this like higher Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
when it's very obviously not. It's a young adult novel. Let's be
Yeah.
real, you know.
Yeah.
And Twilight is just so self-indulgent. Not even self-indulgent. It's just very self-aware. That
Yeah.
it's a young adult novel, and I can respect that so much more. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. All right. I guess we'll just get to that. We'll cut to the scene, the painful scene where she has to leave because the vampire guy is gonna um what you call it? Vampire guy is gonna kill her, the tracker guy or whatever. And so um she has to leave, and so she has to talk to her dad that she's gonna leave, and then she just like is so brutal to him. It's so painful.
Yeah. And that was actually like and I unironically like almost cried at that part. I'm not even kidding.
Damn.
Because for some reason I projected myself on this father figure who
Yeah.
was like introverted, nice guy. You know, he likes his daughter, but like he likes to watch his baseball games. I hate sports, but like I could, from analogy, transmute this kind of energy
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
own hobby. And then all of a sudden she says these horrible things of like, because she has to survive, right? She's being hunted down by this tracker guy.
Yeah.
Because apparently, so this tracker guy like smells her blood or whatever at this baseball game, and he's like, "You're not a vampire." And then he's like, gets really like he gets off on like tracking like hard quests, like a really
Yeah.
hard
Yeah.
WoW quest,
Yeah.
like a level 60 WoW like
Yeah.
daily. And Edward's like, "I'm gonna protect you, even though this guy's super determined, like for fun, to kill you. So like we got to do all these like hoops so he doesn't kill your dad." And she like does this fake scene where she's like, "I'm breaking up with you, Edward. I hate you." And then she's
Yeah.
like, "I hate you, Dad. Like, what are you gonna do? Watch baseball all day? I hate living here." And like, it's exactly apparently what his mom said to the dad before she
Uh.
divorced him. Oh my god, I almost cried, bro. It's like this poor fucking dad. He's just like, you know, obviously he's a movie cop. I don't really like cops, but like in this
Yeah.
situation, I was like, bro, this poor fucking dad. Oh, I almost cried, but I didn't. And it was like, it's so bad. But it resolves in the end, and then she escapes. And then she escapes with Edward,
Yeah.
but they realize that, it's too obvious Edward goes with them. So she escapes actually with this like the sister who can see the future,
Yeah.
and then the new initiate who's like, trying to figure his life out, and they drive down.
Yeah. And then they end up at the ballet studio. We'll skip ahead. We end up at the ballet studio, and this is where I thought it was kind of
Well,
lame.
I was actually gonna comment like before the ballet studio.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So this is literally, remember when I mentioned that there's these things that are like book moments that I feel like they threw in there without describing well enough.
Oh yeah.
The whole ballet studio thing. So she goes away with this guy, with this girl who sees the future, and this other guy who's like, trying not to like suck blood every 2 seconds. He's got like a problem, and you know they go into this house, and she's like, "Oh, I have a vision," and she draws this place with a bunch of mirrors. And Bella's like, "Is that my ballet studio in Arizona?" And I just felt like that whole thing was so contrived, like from the movie perspective, right? There was no reference to the studio ever. It was
Yeah.
all of a sudden like, "Oh yeah, my favorite studio when I was 4 years old." Like, okay, and then it was like this big scene. I just felt like there was a lot of book things that were just like ignored, and then they just threw it into this moment.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. 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 They didn't. It's like they didn't really. It didn't seem like they changed details to make it fit into a movie format. It's like they just used what they had, and then
This ballet thing
yeah.
came out of fucking nowhere, and then of course, like she ends up in that ballet studio,
Yeah.
and he's playing some film of her playing ballet. I just feel like all these details are just
Yeah.
coming out of nowhere, and it's like if you read the book, you would be like, "Oh, I remember that part of the book." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I feel like that's why those things were there. Like, obviously, they didn't want to deviate from the book, which is respect, right? Like, I
Yeah.
really hate when movie directors are like, let's throw the book out because it doesn't make sense. So I
Oh,
respect the
I
decision.
mean, I don't mind that. Like Kubrick did that.
It
Like,
depends. It
yeah,
depends. It depends, bro.
yeah. But most of the
You,
time,
you have to be a genius. Yeah,
yeah,
honestly, it takes. If you don't have the genius to pull it off, then just do the like. All right, if you read the book, this is fan service thing. I respect
yeah,
that. But it makes it a problem for someone like me who's like, I don't know shit about Twilight, bro. But the fact that I could identify that as like, oh, this is the book thing that I should have known about. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just interesting to me, I guess. It's not like really a negative, because I almost feel like if I was in the shoes of a Twilight fan who had read the books, I would be happier that that scene was there than it wasn't.
yeah.
But it was kind of poorly executed. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, and we get to the ballet studio, and this is where I was like, so the vampires. They okay. First of all, they never discuss what are the effects of crucifix on them. What is the effects of garlic on them, or anything like that.
Yeah, no, there's no lore. There's never less. This movie would have been a little bit cooler if there was more lore.
Yeah,
More lore dumps about like the vampire rules would have been nice.
yeah. And I normally don't like lore dumps in things, but for this movie, it would have worked a lot better.
Yeah, it would have helped. I think it would have helped understanding.
But yeah, they're in this hall of mirrors, and they don't do anything with the mirrors. That he doesn't have a reflection or anything. Like, what's the point of? I'm assuming this is what it is in the book.
Did he have a, that's so funny because I was not even thinking about does the vampire have a reflection in this mirror room?
It's like
I didn't even notice if he did or didn't.
I don't know what how it works in the books, but it seems like such a wasted and it seems like such a wasted opportunity that you would have you could have this whole vampire hall of mirrors type thing, um, and they didn't do anything interesting with it at all. It was sort of
Right.
unfortunate. Yeah, and then
It's
basically
like
we have a really it's like a fine action scene, I guess, like them like destroying the studio, and then
he really messes up her leg, and he's like filming her like a sadistic thing, which is like kind of like the Doctor Evil like I'm gonna leave you alone in the Shark Tanks moment, like
yeah,
I'm not gonna kill you right away. I'm gonna film you instead,
yeah,
because it'll make Edward crazy, So I mean, fair enough. There has to be a reason why she doesn't die at that exact moment, but the cheese does seep in through this movie, and it's fine. But I agree, like they do not. I would have liked a little bit of lore because they don't stick to Dracula rules. They don't stick to like any other known vampire rules. They just kind of like I'm sure the book explains it a lot, but I was not aware of the rules, so it was a little frustrating to understand what was going on. Like she gets bit,
yeah.
right, eventually by this guy after he abuses her leg, films her. Edward comes first because he's the fastest, but weren't they all driving cars? Like, aren't they in Arizona and they're coming from Washington? Like, that's
No,
a
no,
long
but
way
it's
up.
faster
Like,
for them to run. They can run faster than they can drive.
so they ran from Washington State to Arizona.
Yes.
Should I pull up a U.S. map to show you why that's crazy?
I mean I know where they are. Yeah, that would be a very
Yeah, I mean it's a little absurd, right? So like,
yes.
and I know I've heard multiple women quote like, "Oh, they love that scene by the way. He's here because he's the fastest." Like they love that. It's so cool to them, and I get that. It's cool.
Yeah.
But apparently everyone else is at the exact same speed, right? It's like
Yeah, well, it doesn't make sense that they would only be slightly behind him if he's the fastest, because it's like if you're going that
well,
long
it's
of a
just like
distance.
apparently he's 70 miles per hour exactly, and everyone else is like 40 miles per hour exactly because everyone else shows up at the exact same time except for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Anyway.
it's like
Well, I
the
mean,
variance
to
is
be
very
fair,
questionable.
he was probably sprinting extra hard because he wanted to get to
Yeah,
Bella.
he had the Goku Senkai boost because he was like so in love.
uh, they kill the guy, which is kind of cool. Like they actually do show like
Yeah,
the decapitation, which I thought was
they
cool.
burn him and shit. Yeah, the girl like comes up there, twists her neck. That's a cool scene, 100%.
And then they have to um, get sucked the poison out of Kristen Stewart.
Very questionable. So like this, probably the number one reason why you need a little bit of a lore dump, like not a dump, but you know what I mean, like expose, like a
Yeah.
very tactfully done. Like these are the rules of the vampires. Because all of a sudden she gets bit, right? And she's like, throbbing, and like the other girl smells her blood. She's like, "Oh my god, I'm so horny for your blood." Because like, but no fap is like my life. And then it's like, and then it's like the doctor's like, "Yo, like you gotta suck the poison out," which is apparently a thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of these last minute rules. It's just like, okay, I can accept this, but like, I would have liked a little bit of. I think a proper like, you know version of the movie would have like given a little bit of a foreshadowing if that was a possibility,
Yeah.
right?
It really needed to be a 4-hour film. That's what I'll say. I wish
It
there was
did.
longer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that's the problem. I mean, I like the movie. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
Yeah.
I was entertained the whole time. But you know these little flaws you got to point out on these kind
Yeah.
of
This
things.
is this is the whole point. This is a movie critique show.
Yeah,
Yeah. So.
we're critiquing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And he sucks her blood, and he's like, "Oh my god, it tastes so good. I can't stop." You know, like it's like you're
Yeah.
fat. He's basically edging a lot of the movie. You know, we can go back actually to talk about the no-fap analogy, which is the whole movie is an analogy for no-fap, by the way. When he's making out with her on the bed, right? When he like shows up all of a sudden, and he backs off, and he's like, "I gotta stop."
Yes. That's so true.
That's the no-fap thing. That's edging, right? That's like when you
Whoa, whoa,
when
whoa, whoa,
you're
whoa, whoa!
fapping
We
a
don't.
little.
Whoa,
No,
whoa,
no,
whoa,
no, no.
whoa!
No, I'm just saying. I'm okay. Wait, it's just
We don't need
it's
to explain.
PG-13. It's PG-13. I'm not explaining anything. I'm just saying that's edging. And then when he's also like sucking the venom out, and he can't stop, right? Like that's like, you know, oh, I'm about to like do the thing, and he's like, I can't stop, and the doctor's like, you gotta have the will. You gotta have the will. It's like the stoicism philosophy of the Cullens comes in. He starts having flashbacks about Bella and whatnot, and all of a sudden he's like, all right, you know, and he doesn't do it. He doesn't kill her, right?
Yeah.
You know, so the whole metaphor is, you know, you don't masturbate. It's bad for you.
True. True. Can't disagree. And wait till marriage.
Wait till marriage, you know, be wholesome. Otherwise, your soul just slowly deteriorates and you'll end up like me.
Mm.
Yes.
All right. Well, I don't think I have literally anything else to say about Twilight.
Yeah, I spoiled my final analysis. Well, let's see. Okay, so Bella's acting is really bad when she has to be emotional. So this is true.
Yeah, she's good in the beginning of the film and like parts of the middle, and then the ending where it's like more dramatic and like intense. Yeah. She is so bad. She's yeah.
So basically, after Edward Cullen sucks her blood out and resists the final orgasm of like the pure Bella blood, who by the way he can't read her mind, but we don't know why, and her blood smells really good, and we don't know why. Maybe the next movie explains it, but as far as we know, it's just like a bunch of unanswerable questions. She ends up in a hospital with like the thing in her nose and like the IV and whatever, and her mom's over her. The mom who like nobody even likes. Like, who would like this mom in this film, right? Like, she's like, I'm hanging out with a baseball MLB player. Like, I don't care about you hanging out with your dad. Like, who could even like her? She's like, I love you so much all of a sudden.
I wish the baseball guy was like, I wish the baseball
and,
guy was Hispanic. I'm hanging out with Carlos.
Like, it would have made more sense. But you know what's funny about that whole scene is that she's like, Mom, what happened to me? She's like, oh, the Cullen said you fell down 2 flights of stairs and then you flew out of a window. Like, what kind of mother would not immediately suspect domestic abuse from Edward Cullen?
No.
Sorry.
The funniest thing.
Like, he obviously beat the shit out of you and threw you through a window. Like, you fell down a flight of stairs, and she's like, oh, that's so like me. Like, nah. Like, unbelievable.
No, the funniest bit is then it cuts to Edward throwing himself through a window to, like, create the illusion that the window did get broken. It was like a very...
What the hell?
Like, where was this window?
So your psycho boyfriend was mad at you, kicked you down 2 flights of stairs and threw you out a window is what a normal mom would have thought. But apparently she was just like, whatever.
She's
That's what they told me. I believe you. I just want to hang out with my MLB star husband now. Carlos. I don't care about you and your...
Jose.
Yeah. I'm so good at baseball, and like you guys suck. Angel Gonzalez, he's from Cuba, and he hits home runs.
Washington State.
And, you know, I heard you got kicked down a flight of stairs or 2, and you got thrown out a window. But I'm sure your boyfriend didn't do that because that would inconvenience me too much to think that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I wrote down. How does the mom not suspect domestic abuse? That's literally what I wrote down.
Yeah. And then the movie literally ends on like a teaser sting for the next film, I guess. And she goes to the prom with Edward.
Yeah.
Very cute.
And she's like, why didn't you turn me? And he's like, you want to be turned right now? And she's like, yeah. And he just kisses her instead.
Based.
Yeah, it's pretty big. I actually like. I haven't seen the next movie, so I was a little. I would have liked this to be one movie, obviously, because I don't want to see the other ones.
Yeah,
You know, with the
they
werewolves and all that.
yeah. Apparently, they get significantly worse. Like this is the best. Like just in terms of the filmmaking, this is supposedly the best one. So I don't know. I don't know
I
if
can imagine.
I'll ever. I do not think I'll ever cover any of the other ones.
But I really wanted to learn a little bit more about this werewolf clan, but they never really got into it in the first one. And then that's
No.
it. That's basically the movie, right?
Yep.
And then the last question I had was just, basic questions like about the lore, like how do you be 17 and be in junior year all the time? Like,
Mm,
so you've been 17 for 100 years, okay. You're still a pedophile. And then it's just like, who are these other members of the Cullen family? I would love to get to know them. They seem really cool. Cannot get to
mm-hmm.
know them. Who is this black guy? Where does he come from? Why are his eyes red? Is it because he drinks human blood? These are just things I assume, right? The
Yeah. Well,
brown.
they were killing those people and drinking the human blood. So
Right. So I assume like the brown hazel eyes, the sparkly hazel eyes, are after the Cullens have a feeding on animal blood,
yeah.
but then the human drinkers get red blood eyes. I feel like that
Yeah.
makes sense, but it's never
Yeah.
said. These lore
Subtly.
questions are really bothering me.
I wanted to go know that black guy's background. He was a
He's cool. I
Cajun
mean,
down in New
I,
Orleans.
what I would really like to know is that like, so he's this like ancient African or Jamaican guy or whatever, but he apparently respects these ancient vampire rules. I would like to know these rules, why he respects them, like what does it mean to not respect them? Because it's kind of like, have you ever seen Highlander?
Yes.
So great movie, right? One of the
Yeah.
greatest
Yeah.
movies of all time. Highlander has these rules of like you cannot step on holy ground. Like right, so they're also immortal, right? So it's like I
Yeah.
feel like that was alluded to in this film, but never like explained. Right? Because
Yeah.
they're like, this is our territory. Get out of here. And they're like, okay, we will. And until they found the human, they were going to do that. You know?
Yeah. Well, they wanted to play the baseball with him. I thought that was funny. It is the American pastime. what?
Yeah,
What?
yeah. It was cool. No, the black guy was chill. He seemed
I
like he
liked him.
respected whatever the rules were. Look, if you're gonna be a human sucking person and then there's rules and you respect them, I'm gonna respect you more than the guy that doesn't respect the rules.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I liked him. He was a cool character. I wish
Yeah,
he should get his own
he
movie.
surprised me. He surprised me. Yeah, I want to see. I want to see. Yeah, exactly. I want to see the side story of the black Jamaican guy. Like, what was he doing in Haiti?
Yeah.
You know.
um. All right. So I think that we've come to the end here. So we both highly recommend From Dusk Till Dawn. Hopefully you've already watched it before listening to
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
But yeah, highly recommend that. And Twilight, it
I
is.
will recommend it, dude. I straight up will recommend it. It's a good film.
I
It
would
was
say
cringe back in the day, but the
drinking
world's
film.
become
I
more
would say
cringe.
drinking film. Drinking film with the buddies is
Yeah,
good.
yeah, dude. Like the world's so bad that that movie is no longer cringe. That's what I would
I
say.
know, I
'Cause
know, I know. Because
that's
that's the thing.
literally my
It's
opinion.
sincere. It's sincere.
It's sincere, yeah. The world's become so cringe that the past cringe is now epic. So watch
Yeah.
that movie. Twilight, both the movies we talked about, I did not have one single problem. I enjoyed. I don't
Mm.
even like movies. I enjoyed both those
You
films.
say
Watch them
that. You
both.
say that. But the three movies that I've now had to like watch with you effectively, you've all said you like them. I think
Oh,
you just don't like the.
I like analyzing things, but I hate movies. Well, you know what? I just don't like certain movies. I think your tastes are pretty good. You got
Oh,
good
thank you.
taste.
Oh, thank you.
But if it's like I just don't like anything that's generic or like overly demonic without any meaning. I like things that have purpose to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things that stimulate my brain.
Mm. Like 30 Rock.
And the Jerk is a great movie, but I
The
like
Jerk's
also
good.
like I like analyzing the antiquated tastes
Mm.
of the past, things like that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I'm very picky. It's not like I never watch movies,
I do
but
wonder if they
yeah,
remade Twilight, if they were to,
I would probably hate it, bro.
if
I
they
would
were
probably
to
hate it.
make, would they make Bella black or would they make her Chinese or something? I wonder. Or
Yeah, they probably would, and they would be like, "We're so sorry for making the Native Americans Samoans, and we're just gonna make them like,
Yeah, that's the thing. You
African
couldn't
American
even
now."
really redo Twilight because that whole Native American thing would be like considered so un PC today.
Yeah, well, like the Native Americans were literally like calling the non-vampire werewolves pale skins,
Yeah.
and it's like that's what they called normal people. It's very bizarre.
Um. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on today. This is the longest episode. This is the longest. We've broken the 2 hour mark. This is a new
Oh
record.
Lord, I actually was like, because I remember we talked and you were like, well, some people have struggled to fill that hour, so I was like, I better talk a lot, but apparently I did a good job. So.
It just it depends on the movies, on the personalities, you know.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Um, yeah. Well, anyway, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Cloutless, again for joining me. I'll have to have you back on again at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, no problem.
Um, yes, that's all. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
All right, stream is done.